What up, folks? Damn, my camera's a little dark, but I'll fix that in a little bit. See, I was telling the Citadel team before this, I screwed the stream up. Damn, I'm only 3 seconds in. It's totally screwed. Um, Good
Because
to
your
see
light's
you
off.
all. So
Yeah.
excited. We got dubstep sculptors pumped up about this. I know Bongi's here.
Hey, ballers, cannibalists,
K-Ballers here. E-Man's here. And I
camper.
know, dude, huge shout out to Anthony's. He is one of our OGs that actually got us introduced to the team. Super freaking excited. Sorry, I'm going to turn my light up because I am pretty dark, but now it's a lot
Yep.
better.
you
Thank
go.
you so much for being here. Damn, we already have over 40 people in chat. You're just waiting for us to be live, getting excited here.
Yeah.
Hell
Love
yeah.
it.
Amazing
Love it.
Mint Day already. I think this is the first time we've been able to talk to a project on Mint Day. They have been up for God knows how long and still took the time to come here, talk to you all, and entertain Maddie and I with all of our crazy questions. Maddie, how you feeling, man? You pumped as I am?
Dude, amazing time. Sorry we're late, folks. Honestly, we were sitting there chatting, and we were just having such a good conversation while Mike was getting the stream set up. We had to be like, whoa, 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 we got to like actually put this on stream. So it was great. Enjoying myself.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm so excited. So, as you know, some of the OGs normies are probably getting used to this shtick that I have started doing, and it's to reiterate our message for the newer people to the stream. Just really want to take couple seconds to tell you what midlife crisis is about. We are in such a fortunate position where Maddie and I started gaming, got into the NFT world through some crazy circumstances. And as we started talking about NFTs and streaming, we actually had a core team of people reach out to us and said, hey, we want to be a part of something that you're doing. We like your vibe. We like what you're doing. And now we got a core team of 6 people, and we all love NFTs. We all share similar principles. And that's enabled us to really kind of concept, what are we doing with this? And what do we want to do with this? And our mission statement is pretty simple. We want to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And as we things get more connected, and don't get us wrong, we freaking love technology and NFTs.
Heck yeah.
But we do think genuine connection could be something that goes by the wayside in the future. And we want to make sure that everyone realizes just how important that is. And that's why we have conversations like we do today and do the content that we do. AMAs in particular today are all centered around honest conversations, fun conversations, and bringing what you probably wouldn't see in a typical Twitter space or other AMA. Um, and with that, we're looking to the future. We really just want to build the first genuine, legit media company centered around NFTs. And new and OGs, we're excited to have you along for the ride. So, without further ado, before I get uh, Styx and Max to introduce themselves, I got a couple backgrounds points about them, little accolades. So I'm going to start with Styx. Now, by the way, Styx is on top. That is actually Styx's Twitter. So that's why it's a little confusing. I will add the name Styx on top of that just so everybody knows who's talking. But that is his Twitter. If you want to follow Styx, that's where you're going to find him. Styx was in the gaming industry since 1992. Literally started out as QA. This guy has seen the ins, the outs of the gaming industry. He's gone from arcades to PCs to consoles. And on top of it, if you haven't noticed, there might be a particular aesthetic to the Citadel artwork, maybe painterly, because Styx is also trained as a painter. And on top of that, as if that wasn't enough, he's also a big mentor of concept artists and it's a little bit of a thing in the industry. And if that isn't enough, then we get to move on to Max. So Max has been a longtime software guy, bought into crypto kitties. Most of you probably don't even know what that is, but basically that means Max is an OG when it comes to crypto. And this is mind-blowing when you told us this, and I'm really excited to share this with you. And you should be excited if you've bought into the project, are thinking about buying into the project, because he's written some of the most used contracts in the Web3 NFT crypto space right now. You're literally going to be able to hear and ask questions to that dude today. And we're so excited. And then on top of that, this dynamic duo not only has all these accolades, they've worked on one of the top MMOs ever created. We might not be able to say the name, but just know you've probably heard of it. And then a fun little, and I swear I'll stop after this, but this is all just great information. Fun little story. Styx and Max met each other at a party. I think it was a costume party. And Dune was playing in the background. And that's when they really didn't need to say much, probably connected eyes, and immediately were like, we're going to be best friends. And after that, now we're sitting here on Midlife Crisis talking NFTs and a successful freaking NFT launch. I'm going to start with you, Styx. How are you doing, man? And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it wasn't exactly a Frodo and Sam moment, to be honest. It wasn't anything like that. Not the 5 second ones here, but I'm doing great. I'm super honored to be on the show. It's been an exciting day. We've been just going on zero sleep, preparing for the mint today, and I'm just super happy to be here. And thank you for having us.
Love
Thank you
it.
to your community too. This is fantastic. It's
Oh,
great to see you.
so excited. We actually, I think we have a lot of your community in here too, because I'm seeing first time chatters. So you've built
Absolutely.
I went into your Discord a couple times today and I could tell just like you have some very passionate people, which is cool because I think that is by far the better community, which is smaller but passionate people, which we've built on our side too as well. So it's really cool to see.
Sure.
And then how
And
about you? How
well,
about
hold on, just to say this though, because I think it kind of might be a Frodo Sam thing. I think it might have started as stepbrothers. You saw Dune, and like, did we just become best friends? But you just got through Mint Day, and I don't know. That's kind of like Mint Day, Mordor. It
Yeah,
could be
that's
a
true.
thing. So you might
It,
actually be more like Frodo and Sam than you think. So just saying,
I appreciate
got to give
that. Thank
yourself
you.
some credit.
All right, all right.
and how about you, Max? Good to have you. Thank you. I had the honor of being able to talk to you about a week and a half ago. Had big plans to talk way in advance of this stream. Then I straight up ghosted you because I bought a last minute ticket to Austin to see my family and, dropped off the face of the map for the 3 or 4 days. But definitely needed to happen. And I'm so glad that we had the chance to promote this. And now we're all here and we're about to have a real good time. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having both of us, and we're really excited to meet your community and be on the show. This is my first Twitch show, so it's a milestone for me minting today and a milestone for me being on the show. Yeah, we're really excited for this project. It's really the very beginning. We've been working on this quietly in the background for 6, 7 months. Styx has been doing amazing art, and our other
Oh,
co-founder
doing great,
Nequin and
man.
myself have been just grinding away at the game client, and we haven't shown a lot of that. So we're really excited. We have a lot of stuff baked up and ready to start showing and getting people more involved in the immersive world of Citadel. So thanks for having us, and I'm pumped to be here.
Absolutely. So this is how we usually do this. And like we said, very open, casual style conversation. We have one question, and we always ask the same question in the beginning. And then Matt and I have a uncanny ability to think of questions as we have a cool conversation. And that one question is, how did you get to the seat you're sitting in today? And you feel free as to go into as little detail as possible. And how the screen looks right now, I don't know if you all are watching on Twitch. Um, but Sticks, you're at the top, so I'm going to start with you. So
Okay.
Sticks, how did you get to the seat you're sitting in today, man?
One thing that led me to being in this seat right now. Uh, it's one of these things that I'm sure you know this with a lot of people you talk to. You hear their story, and they all go along the same lines. Like, there's no way that you could plan the life that you live. And
Mhm.
I owe really a lot of it to being at the right place at the right time, but more importantly, speaking up and having conversations. Everything that I owe in my career and has been from me stepping up and having a conversation with somebody that opened up doors or opened up mentorships or opened up like some learning. And one thing led to another, and I just, anytime I do talks or work with other artists, I'm always encouraging them to like really step out of their little bubble and start engaging with the world or the game. I like to think everything is a game. That's how. And so
I
I'm
love it.
constantly like hitting up NPCs and seeing if they're co-op players or not. You know what I'm saying? So
I love that.
yeah.
So,
So I mean, the short answer is like, yeah, just being engaging and constantly producing, and just, even as I'm talking to you guys, I'm painting a little bit here in the background, just here and there. So
yeah,
I'm always producing.
no, I love it. And I want to take that short answer and maybe turn it into a longer answer. And
Sure.
starting with, I think, um, for me, an obvious conversation is why gaming? How gaming? Like, how did you get into it?
Yeah,
We
for sure. That
introduced you as
Mhm.
binning into a long time. Like, what did that? Was there a childhood moment? Did you always, what? Could you talk to us about that whole kind of
Yeah.
path?
Absolutely, yeah. How do I say this without giving too much away? So I'd always like been inquisitive, and I loved always working around smart people, and it all started with an intention. I was working pretty much out of art school. I got jobs doing every kind of thing that I took classes in, whether it be printing, photography, graphic design, and I found out that each one of those things I took classes in was like sweatshop labor in essence, in the real world.
Yeah.
Like whether it's like working in a silkscreen shop and printing t-shirts or doing some kind of thing like that. And so I always thought, like, wouldn't it be cool to work around people that are constantly innovating and constantly in technology? I didn't know it was gaming. I just set that intention. Like, I wanted to surround myself. I always imagine myself like having gravity and drawing myself to people, or feeling like I'm a big proponent of following your gut. And I would just follow my gut and just start conversations with people. And one of the things that started like me in the game industry is I was talking to a programmer that was at my girlfriend's roommate. It was my girlfriend's roommate's boyfriend, and he and I were having a conversation. He was telling me about a problem he was having in programming. My father is a programmer, so I was like, "Oh, I kind of know what you're talking about with algorithms and stuff like that." We are having a small conversation, and then I just blurted out, "Hey, do you guys need testers?" And he just was like, "What did you say?" And I was like, "Yeah, do you need testers?" He's like, "Yeah, like." Actually, we do. You should call this guy right now. And this is before like cell phones. So this I had to get on the old phone, and dial it up and talk to this guy. And long story short, it turns out it's a game company. And he's like, "Yeah, I need a tester. Can you start today?" And so that was my foray into the game industry, is like by that willingness to just take a chance and dive in and just start working. And as I got into understanding what testing was, I made friends with the art director, and he's like, "Are you?" Because I was doing freelance illustration at the time, concept stuff. And he's like, "Oh, like is that your artwork that's in the newspaper?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been doing illustration and stuff like that." And he's like, "You should learn 3D." So I started talking to 3D artists and saying, "What should I learn?" And so every step of the way was just a matter of like having that possibility and dropping any sort of limiting beliefs that I know it should be as an artist, or what I should be in game development. I just was like wide open without any rules. So to me, it's like constantly engaging in those. Does that answer your
That
question?
was an amazing response, and I appreciate that. And so we'll get to kind of what brought you to NFTs for both of you next, but I'd love to hear same question for you,
Yep.
Max. Uh, how'd you
And
get to the
Mikey,
seat? Go ahead.
real quick, there's actually a stream of people that are putting questions in chat. I just want you all to know, like Mike said in the beginning, we are going to 100% get to those questions. We just like to go through background information first, so don't think that we're ignoring you. We do see them, we collect them, and then we'll ask them a little bit later. Okay, so I appreciate the questions. Keep them coming.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
I think that's good. And you will be happy to know, everyone, other than the specifics about the game and NFT, which we will get to later, most of them somehow end up getting answered anyways. So thank you. Keep them coming. We got you covered. But on to you, Max. Same question. How'd you get to the seat that you're sitting in today? Feel free to go into as much detail as you want.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I think my answer is very so one of the things I know about Styx is that we both grew up in a rural town, and we both grew up as only children. And so we had, I'll speak for myself, but I had just this creativity that was kind of building and building and building in me, because I had no outlet to do anything else other than to be in my room with Legos or drawing or stuff like that. So I had this creativity building and building in me, and it found an outlet in Web3. I've been in software my whole career, and I really felt like I came alive when I discovered Web3 and started making the types of worlds that I thought were possible. So that's a short answer to how I'm here in Web3 today.
Love it. And then it's kind of same for you. Just dive in a little deeper, and I know you all are um, anon for multiple reasons, and whatever you feel comfortable sharing from a little more of that childhood as to or not even college professional career of what got you into the developing computer science, because I'll tell you right now, I took C++ in high school, And I got about 2 weeks into that bitch, and I was like, "This is not how my brain works." I was like, "You put it," because back then they didn't have the nice editors, right? Like
Oh no,
No.
oh
you
no.
were combing through for periods and commas and quotes, and I was like, "No, no, 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 this is not me." So I'd
That'll
be interested into how, what you saw about it, or what made you excited about um, that career path.
yeah.
Yeah, a couple things. I just love to build software, build things that people use constantly, and build things that give people joy in the world. And so video games and little blockchain games and anything that's a product that people use that gives them joy, I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of that. So that's I get thrilled out of it actually. Like when I've made a couple really big hits in my tenure as a developer of the MMO you mentioned, and a couple number one mobile apps, and just knowing that my software is out there, that millions of people are using it, and getting some satisfaction out of it, just that really drives me. So that's kind of how that materializes for me.
Awesome, I love it. And as far as kind of your development and a career path, can you talk about maybe how technology, because you've seen technology shift over time, um, and were there any moments, and obviously Web3 is a very exciting time, right? But as you go through that career path, were there any moments that also excited you, or you like to reminisce about, and maybe even um, moments or experiences that have helped, or you think has helped geared you up or made you better to tackle the Web3 world?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think there's
Great
been
question.
three major innovations that
Thank you.
have really blown me away. The first was I was sitting in college at a Unix terminal, and I used email, and yes, that dates me, but it was pre World Wide Web. It was in modem land, and I discovered an early version of the internet called Gopher, or not a version of the internet, but a version of the World Wide Web called Gopher, and I was just fascinated by it. And so I was actually a physicist in college, and was planning to be some sort of an engineer. And I switched careers right then, and I just fell in love with web, and I joined web startups, and that became my career. The second piece of technology that's really informed who I am as a developer is Bitcoin. I heard about Bitcoin very early. I have a lot of cypherpunk type of friends, and they were talking about it, and I got into it. I didn't really. It was my first touch point with Bitcoin, but I didn't do anything with it. My second touch point was when my friend Blake had thousands of Bitcoin on his computer, and he lost his key, and I was trying to help him crack it.
Oh,
And I have no idea, Blake, if you're listening, I hope you found your Bitcoin. I still didn't do anything with Bitcoin. And then the third time I touched Bitcoin was still really early, and was a normal friend of mine, Sam, who's a lawyer, and he was talking about Bitcoin. And then I'm like, okay, if Sam is talking about Bitcoin, I'm all in, because I had fallen in love with the white paper. I thought it was really interesting, but I didn't think it would catch on. And so the next day, I was setting up industrial mining rigs in my garage,
oh my gosh.
and they ran for like a year until my wife made me turn them off because they were hot and loud. So that shut down, but I've been really interested in Bitcoin since. And then the third is CryptoKitties. CryptoKitties doesn't get a lot of press in modern Web3, but it was really the thing first thing built on a blockchain that was interesting, the first game, the first application. And
Yeah.
so that really thrilled me, and it made me see a potential future for Web3 that was more than CryptoKitties. And so those are kind of the three big touch points in my career that led me to making Citadel.
Right. Yeah, what an amazing
It's awesome.
answer. What an amazing response. And before I let Maddie chime in with anything, I wanted to turn it over to you, Sticks, if you had anything to add to that conversation a perspective from you being a designer, illustrator, and moments in your career that have helped prepared you for where you're at now.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just was thinking about like how I didn't know that Max studied physics, so I was like, oh, I did that too, but I switched my major, so I could like get out early. Wow, like what are some pivotal points for me? It's I think meditation was one. To be honest, like learning to meditate, like
It's
opened
huge.
me up. Huge moment for me. And that's whenever, right, I think like within a few weeks after I learned to meditate is when I got into the game industry.
Okay.
So that I have a deep correlation with that. And and early on in my life, just playing games with my family. My father was a big gamer. My mom was a big gamer. She played Dungeons and Dragons. And so my dad he was in working on mainframes all the time, so I was around technology all the time. So for me, I just grew up looking at life as a game, and
Ah.
so I view everything that way, and just frame it that way. So as I've leveled up throughout my life, whether I like it or not, I'd always looked at it from a perspective like one, it's going to make a great story later. Two, it'll I'm gonna learn how to utilize the pattern or the strategy, and then I can teach it to other people, and then they can like move ahead. So, I mean, I'm not answering it specifically, but there's so many moments, but those kind of key things of just like seeing how there's a flow to life. The more that you participate it, the more that the game itself like gives you feedback. That's just how it's been for me.
Yeah, no,
So
and again, like, I reiterated this in the beginning. You all aren't fully doxxed yet for a multitude of different reasons, but that answer is fantastic, right? And I think it goes to kind of show what we're here to do, and that is you obviously. Both of you in our community's mind and your community's mind are successful, interesting people that are ready to give, well, already have given you a good sum of, or will give you a good sums of money in the future as well, because they believe in you, and you being able to share things that um, help make you more relatable or could spark some interest or change a mindset for somebody that has happened to listen to the stream now or watch it on YouTube later. Like that's really what this is all about. So fantastic answer. I appreciate it.
yeah, sure. And what's cool is like even this whole thing with Citadel, the way that like Max and I came together on this, and as well as Nequin is, um, is just all through a conversation. You know, I had this whole series of paintings that I've been working on for a number of years, and then Max is like, "Hey, you want to put those paintings up? Like, let's really help you." And he totally got me like hooked up in the NFT space, and then he's like, "Yeah, like I'll help you do that." And he's like, "I'm working on a little project. I'd love for you to take a look at the white paper and get some feedback." And then I was like, "I want to be part of this," you know.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we were going to talk about this later, but I'll just go ahead and talk about it now. But he was like, "Yeah, just all I need is like a couple of like, a few like maybe 3 or 4 images and a background and maybe a logo." And I was like, "What? No, I could do a lot more than that, dude." He's like, "No, no, I know you're busy. You got your day job and stuff." And I was very, I mean, I don't know if I came across as persistent, Max. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was just like, no, I wasn't going to take no for an answer.
Hmm.
You were certainly showing your passion. That was a seminal moment in Citadel history. Yes.
No, but but that
I mean,
adds we have so much context already because you gave some of your background and hearing both of you talk about your upbringings, you can see like that's exactly the type of people you need to be successful in this space, but also you had similar passions. So it definitely fed off each other, which is cool. Maddie, you had something to say?
Yeah, and I mean, Sticks, you said speaking up and having conversations has served you well, right? And
Yeah,
there's an example, right? I mean,
totally.
your pieces of advice were, not just about good timing, although it was that, right? But it was speaking up, and I think that that's again, it reiterates that is crucial in this space. Is that you could have stayed silent, right? You could have just kind of mellowed out and been like, well, okay, I guess they're just not interested, and then this wouldn't happen, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. I think it's very important for people to understand that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why I said it's great. I mean, to learn to follow your gut, because there's been so many times that I'm sure your audience and you guys have already experienced this too, where there's some moments where you're like in third person mode and watching cinematic unfold in
yeah,
front of you,
Mm-hmm.
where you're like, why am I saying this right now? But it ends up being a pivotal point in your life. Had you not said that or taken that action, then you'd just be in a passive mode, you know. But because you
yeah,
engaged and you said something, and then it sets a different course of action in play.
I love
oh yeah,
that. I don't that I don't think I've had people have said exactly what you said in very different ways, and I love how you described that. It's
yeah,
just a interesting, creative way to say it, which makes sense with these incredible images that you've made.
yeah,
Oh,
for sure. One question I had, so for you, Max, is you described some of these kind of pivotal moments, and you described that Web3 was a big deal. But my question is not necessarily what equipped you, but by the way, first of all, background. The way you just talked about your background in gaming and code, I can't help but just remember that amazing should have won an Oscar movie, Hackers, back in the 90s. And I'm just envisioning
Yes.
Zero Cool and you hacking the planet into the IRS database, and you had to change your name and go all secretive and switch it to Zero Cool, or what was it? Was it Zero Cool? I think it
I
was,
think it was
Mike.
Zero Cool. Please tell me you're
Yeah.
both familiar with this phenomenal movie.
yes, of course.
All right,
Of
fantastic.
course.
I mean,
Fantastic. Hey, listen, most of
it's no
our
Dune.
audience
It's no
has
Dune.
no clue what the hell it is, and that really shows our age when we're
Yeah.
like, yeah, we knew Angelina Jolie before she was a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But
He
Mike
owes
and I
me
can
money.
also right.
Mhm.
Mike and I can also hit on the fact that, I mean, dude, the dial up, using the modems, calling each other,
Yeah.
and the pre-internet days were pretty awesome on bulletin boards, and seeing what was going on. But my question
Matt,
though is
hold on,
just
hold on, hold on. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we got to do the quick version so they can appreciate our lifestyle, and that is the Command and Conquer sandbag. You just got to do
all
it really quick, really
right.
quick. 30-second version.
All right. So playing the original Command and Conquer, we decided to play a multiplayer game, right? And since
Uh-huh.
we didn't have a cool setup where we could have like a LAN party, we
Uh-huh.
dial into each other's modems and we're playing multiplayer Command and Conquer. And it's me and my buddy and then Mike and one of our other friends. And they found out that everything in that game, to build it, it must be attached within one little kind of radius of something else that's already been built, right?
Right.
Well, so they sat there and spent I don't even know how long and built one sandbag, then another sandbag and deleted the old one, then a new sandbag and deleted the old one, all the way across the map, and then just dropped an obelisk of light in the middle of our base and just wreaked havoc. And it was like the crowning achievement of multiplayerdom
Hell
in
yes.
Mike's childhood.
Dude, it was
So
unbelievable. And
Oh,
that
that
shit
is
took us at
amazing.
least 30 minutes to sandbag all the way across that desert map. I vividly remember this. I was
yes,
so excited about it, though.
it
Gives a
come
whole
to
new
find
meaning to
out.
sandbag. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Exactly,
It's the
exactly.
Command and Conquer version of like the Zergling Rush, so to
I was
speak.
about to say, yeah, that reminds me of the Zergling Rush. That's
Yeah,
amazing. But
exactly.
just a
Kind of
real
has those
slow
vibes.
molasses,
Yep.
Yep.
methodic.
Just yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
Took
So, but that
took
was,
dedication, but we knew at the point they were like,
dude.
if they saw a sandbag in the middle of the map, they're gonna be like, that must just be a glitch or something because of our shitty modems. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, it's a weird graphic or something. Yeah, had no idea. So,
That's
and dude,
Oh,
that
hilarious.
the sound that thing makes when it turns on, it's just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just all of a sudden we're like, what is going on? that was a presentation.
Okay, that was more than
All
30
right,
seconds, but
so
I had to
little
throw that in
detour,
there.
No, that
little
was good. I
detour.
appreciate that.
Sorry, but
Oh, we're on
so
Twitch. Like it's all a detour.
that's
Yeah,
true. That's
exactly.
true.
It's all
Um,
hyperlinked conversations.
Here's the question though. You've been in code, right? You've seen the stuff. What about Web3? Because you said Web3 like really kind of lit you up. You were like, all right, this is my jam. But code is kind again, I don't want to say code is code, but you're already used to that methodical programming mentality. Why is Web3 so interesting to you compared to traditional, let's just say Web 2 or traditional programming styles? What is it about Web 3 that I guess makes things lights up?
Yeah, this is going to be a really strange answer, but I feel like we can make people feel things in a way in Web3 that they can't in Web 2 or in a console
Mm,
game.
Mhm.
And by that I mean in a tokenized game, you have something really near and dear to you at stake in the game. And
mm,
I talk about Citadel a little bit. Citadel is a violent dystopian game of destruction where you have these really valuable NFT in the game called Citadel, and you, in order uh, to play in this tokenized economy, you need to put that token at risk. So you have to put something you care very deeply for at risk, and you have to play the game well to keep it and to expand and conquer in the game. And I think a game like that, a game like Civilization, is a very fun game. But I think if you take Civilization and tokenized it, it's a game that makes people feel things. It makes people feel fear. It makes people feel anxiety. It makes people feel joy when they conquer someone and actually get some tokenized benefit from it. In our game, it's a citadel, or in our game, it's our in-game token. But it's really the feelings of that Web3 can derive in people that makes me want to spend all my time here as a developer, as a
Mhm.
community member. There's tons of projects that I just think are fascinating in the landscape, and I feel really at home here.
Mhm.
Again, not a weird answer at all. Phenomenal
Yeah,
answer.
phenomenal answer. And man, it leads to so many new questions, right? Because okay, so when you talk about feeling something, I agree with you, right? But what's interesting is my first thought is it's bringing back something that gaming has lost. And here's what I mean by that, right? So again, we've all dated ourselves here. I remember sitting there renting Ninja Gaiden and watching Mikey G go nuts because you know it. Once you lose that game, it is over. You hit the reset button on that NES, right? There's
Mhm.
no, oh, I'll just pick up my save game. You start from the very beginning. And so when you get in and you're like 8 hours deep in a game and you're down to your last life, you also feel something. There is a visceral feeling of like everything is on the line right now. Do not
Mhm.
waste the fact that we have just been gaming this entire day and the pressure is on. And it's weird because I think we've actually kind of lost a little bit of that like skin in the game with games. Do you
Mhm.
know what I'm talking about,
Totally.
Mikey?
Yeah,
It,
I love it. Do you
it,
have something to say, Sticks?
yeah, and I just think there's
Oh
something
yeah,
you guys are doing.
absolutely.
You're like bringing that back. I kind of like it.
I love it too.
Yeah, this is one of the first sort of conversations that Max and I had about Web3 that was it's so intriguing, like, and being in the game industry and seeing those cycles and rhythms, and also seeing like the sort of like you come up with an innovative idea and then you start seeing people copying and like trying to mimic that, and then to play it safe in order for the stockholders to make their money in the bigger games, like, or like if you're working with a Microsoft or Sony,
Right.
there's so many how do I say, like, limited beliefs
Mm.
around fun. And both Max and I are in the business of fun.
Yeah.
Like every day we're inquiring, like, how can we make this more fun? Like, how do, like, whether from a coding perspective or from a social engineering perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I feel like games are in a lot of ways, is that there's so many strategies we're learning. Like, the sandbagging strategy, like, now is going to be famous.
Right?
Like the slow moving, methodical. They'll never expect this because it's not a Zergling rush, you know. Um, but my point being is that like when Max talked to me about Web3 and he broke down NFTs and smart contracts, and I'm like, well, right now they're kind of like smart receipts, but like what's the potential? Like can we put virtual machines in smart contracts? What would a smart contract look like in 50 years or 100 years? What can we do with those things? And when we had these
Yeah.
kind of deeper philosophical connections on that, I got super excited about it, and just you know I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I've just been super stoked, and like this is all I'm thinking about is Citadel, and like
Yeah.
how can we take what we're doing and not only make people feel, but also feel that value, um,
Ooh.
right? Because like
Yeah.
this is why I'm like painting my ass off is for these like these NFTs. Whenever we first started talking about, like he's like, "Are you cool doing one-on-ones?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, like totally do that." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Um, but it is a grind sometimes, it's like, holy smokes, like
Sure.
it's a lot of paintings. But it's been, each one is telling a story, and the way that I'm looking at it and the way that we are building out the lore is that each one of these has a tie to some faction or has a tie to some lore, that there's some
Mm,
moment in the history of the whole Drakma and Citadel and the whole dimension that we're in, this post-human, very chaotic, very like ruthless space, and in that's why I purposely made some of them so calming looking, like the two that you have up on the screen right now. Like
yeah.
one's like this very ancient looking
Yeah.
Citadel that has
Yeah.
some religious tones to it, and another is
Yep.
very like almost like a NASA built it, and it's like remnants of that's like the Outer
Yeah.
Rim sort of factions,
Yeah.
Like a
that
blade.
are just
It
kind
has
of
like a
put in
Blade
space.
Runner kind of vibe.
Right, right, right. So, and then there's some that are like, I've been building some of these citadels that are on fire. I was showing some to Max and Necklin the other night, where we were doing if you guys hadn't seen it, check out like the whole like Twitter lore stuff, where there's a
Mhm.
progression of each of the citadels, and then one's on fire. I just like, got into it, and I was like taking some citadels I've already finished and making them destroyed. So whenever um, I think Max will talk about this in a moment, but whenever that whole part of what we mean by you're going to feel something playing this game
Right.
is really what's at stake, and I'll pass the baton over to Max because I could keep
Yeah.
on
And
chatting.
before you get into it, because here's what I'm getting from what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
If we use Ready Player One, because we've used that movie as an example many times, especially it's just a great
Mhm.
example when you're
Sure.
trying to explain to somebody else outside of this space what the
Hmm.
metaverse is.
Hmm.
Um, what I feel like you have is that we have a space where, like most of the planets or spaces in Ready Player One, you were safe, right? You couldn't get essentially zeroed out in the terms of the
Hmm.
movie. But
Right.
then there was Planet Doom, and that was like all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That was where the best players were going to gravitate to because everything was on the line. I kind
Right.
of getting that vibe from what you guys are trying to do. Is that kind of am I striking in the
That's a
right
great
area?
analogy. Yeah, the great analogy. Hmm.
All right, I
Matt
love it.
Matt is an insane movie analogy person. Just it's a hidden talent this dude has. He
I like
always
to say sacred skill. It's a sacred skill.
it's
Yeah.
a sacred skill. He's always throwing out references to me, and I'm like, bro, I have no clue what you're talking about. One thing I wanted
But
to
I
add
feel
on,
it deeply. I feel it
dude,
deeply.
he is a deep thinker, and it's one of our pillars is think deeply before you speak, and we do that, and we pride ourselves on that. Although I'm obviously the color commentary of the two. um, but one thing I wanted to add for this, and then I think we've done an awesome job of just like I feel like I'm getting. I don't know if you're watching chat, but there's a lot of like I am so hyped. This is awesome that we're getting to know you all. But we can start going into the evolution of like Citadel. But One of the things from my perspective, because I think all three of you did an amazing job of like, I love this. I don't think I've ever heard somebody again describe it as like, what does Web3 bring that's different? And it's this feeling and emotion. And the thing that I go to is the community aspect, right? And yes, there Call of communities in Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. There absolutely are. But do they have the sense of camaraderie and connection that I feel with a Discord centered around a game like the Citadel that I know I might be able to make some income in and meet new friends and have fun at the same time? Like that to me is the game changer I see. What are your all thoughts about that?
Max, you want to take that?
Sure, sure. So yeah, building on that, I think I just really wanted to make a game that I wanted to play. And I'm really big into strategy games and
Mhm.
strategy games of conquest. And I really wanted to build a game on the blockchain that was strategy for a number of reasons. And the biggest reason was that I felt like there's on blockchain there's and this is a bit of a technical answer there's a lot of friction to deal with, and there's only certain
Mhm.
types of games that you can make, and one of them is a strategy game because you can slow things down in a strategy game. You don't have to play strategy games for weeks, sometimes months. On a
Mhm.
board game it's days, but Citadel is a game that we're going to play for years. It's a strategy game that will be played in perpetuity, and actions in the game will take hours and hours and hours, if not days, to reconcile. So when you're sieging a citadel in the game, it will take you 24 hours to get there. It'll take 24 hours for the battle to occur, and it'll take 24 hours to get back. So it's a lot like what a battle would look in real life, and that allows
Mm.
us to create a game that works without any friction on the blockchain. So we get all of the wonderful benefits of a blockchain and the tokenization and what that can bring to a competitive game. And we don't have any of the negatives of the blockchain in our game because we've made it slow play and allow the game to evolve over a period of weeks, months, and hopefully years.
I love it, and I love that answer. Um, and I think the thing that I was also getting at too is just um, for me, and I will call it, um, and I've used this term, brand 3.0, right? Everyone's like, it's Web 3. To me, it's a brand 3 because I've worked for massive organizations with billions upon billions of dollars of budgets. So like you guys, are familiar with how big entities have these massive advertising budgets, and you're spending all this money to speak to a consumer, whereas Web 3 is you are the shareholder, you are the brand, and you want it to succeed because you believe in it that much, and that's just a different mindset that isn't happening in your traditional corporate world. So that gets me really, really excited about the possibilities, and for, like you just said, a game like Citadel that uh, think about how cool this community and exchanges are going to evolve over time, and you're saying years, right? Like it's just going to take on a life of itself, and that's nothing that you could, as one person, sit at your desk and draft up the most amazing Einstein-esque ideas. You're just not going to be able to come up with the power of a really tight-knit community that believes in something. So that's kind of what I was getting at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And if I can build on that for a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
I loved your analogy of a brand. And one of the things I'm most fascinated about Web3 is how games and how communities will spin off back into Web2, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we have this presence in Web3, and in our game especially, our game has factions, right? And so there's going to be four factions, and the key to the game is to balance those factions. And So we're going to have four splintered groups, and they're all going to be collaborating with each other and fighting the other three. And so there's going to be alliances, there's going to be backstabbing, there's going to be spies, and that's going to occur in game and out of game. And I'm really fascinated to see what will happen in Citadel when you have these assets that you love and care about and have this financial number
Yes.
associated with them. How does that amplify behavior? Does that make you a worse person? Does it make you a better person?
Oh,
How does that spill out into Web 2? How does that spill out into Twitter? How does that spill out into Reddit? I'm fascinated by this, and I think
Mhm.
Citadel will be a little bit of a candle in this, and not candle, but I hope we light a little bit of a fire here, and show people how games can break out of where they live and kind of immerse into your daily life. So I'm really excited about that, and everyone that's working in Web3.
oh yeah.
It's a big deal.
I love that expansion on that. Sticks or Maddie, do you have anything else to add to kind of this conversation?
Yeah, let Sticks go.
Oh, he just said it so eloquently. I'm just inspired daily with what's possible and how we're um, taking the technology and the community and really blowing the roof off of the possibilities of what we can do.
Maddie, any
That's
thoughts there?
Yeah, well, it becomes a social experiment at some point, right? I mean, it's kind of like, wait a second, what's possible?
mm-hmm.
And we're not going to know till we push the limits, right? And so when you say, how does this bleed out into all these other areas and components, it's going to be fascinating, because it would seem as if, so far, based on what I've heard, you've built you've built it in a way um, to get that effect on purpose, right? This
Yeah,
isn't like, hey, we'll just see what happens. If we fall off a log, we fall off a log,
like
there's
Frogger. Is that a
yeah, right. This is there's a strategy behind it, and to kind of take another level, it's like it's a strategy game in multiple areas, right?
mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be interesting to see how we're ready for that. How does the space receive that? How does people outside of the space receive that? As we all know, it only takes some of these things that become, how to say this, that change the rules, so to speak, can come out of nowhere. And it's just interesting, because I do believe that, the people behind them, some of them have it just happened by blind luck, but others were putting the right pieces on the table at the right time to create a kind of a collider effect, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that should be interesting.
It's like rock and roll and chocolate and what else? iPhone. Like those are like technologies that came about that changed the way that we look at stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, of course, right? And
You
I mean,
know
I think
what?
we see the obvious ones, but it's the lower key ones that
Yeah,
that I think are interesting, how it changes the
Yeah.
way we think about it.
yeah, and like you said, it's a social experiment. And as you were describing the social experiment, like that's to me is like what how we describe games.
Hmm.
Like the very fundamental aspect of a game is like you create so much disassociation for the person they forget time and space and they become that, whether it be first person, third person, RTS, whatever, they are that experience.
Right.
They're just like they're not aware that they're holding a controller or have a keyboard in their hand. They're just in it. And what we're really looking for in Citadel is like not only to like be so in it, but also like recognizing that there's partnerships to be made, that there's community, that there's we have these factions, and then we're making on some level like these models, these characters that resonate deep core values on for each faction, but like almost like the shadow sort of values. It's not like
Hmm.
it's very pretty. Like, in fact, everything about the world of Citadel is very post-human,
Hmm.
and it's been fascinating. We've been having really great conversation. The founders. and I about like how we show this, how we build out that lore, and how we do it very differently than how any other game developer's been doing it. Like the way that we chose our free men from that, so like we're putting up lore to marketing, and we had tons of people come on to our Discord and like, hey, we could totally like shill your goods, and I'm like, really, we don't do that because we're all self-funded. It's not like we need to pay off any VC capital or anything. Doing this for ourselves and for our community.
I love it.
Amazing conversation. It's just the one thing I want to add, and then we can get on to. I kind of want to have a general question of uh, like when you both realized, and I think it's more you, Max, of like Citadel. I want to make an NFT, ready to pull the trigger. So I want to talk about that. But I love how we all and Max, you and Sticks particularly expanded upon this like social experiment in the game, which is really interesting because we talked I get hit up with projects a lot all the time. It's like
Mm.
they help me consult or what do you think about my project?
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear one, I always say founders need to know how to run a business and need to be
Mm-hmm.
successful, which you all obviously have the clout and the background to do that, but obviously being different, and it's so easy to say to be different, but what you've done, and I would love to know the answer to this, and I'm assuming it wasn't intentional, but in the skew I have on it is you wanted this to be almost a social experiment too, but I think that's the big, like, yes, there is technology happening in Web3, but it's a massive social experiment as well with the Discords and Twitters and how people are interacting. So it's playing on what I think is one of the cooler aspects of Web3 within your game. So just bravo to you for that strategy, that thought process, because it's going to be really interesting to see how that evolves.
Cool. Thanks for noticing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really fun. The three of us are really good at making games. Like we know how to do that. We know how to make an immersive game. But what's interesting to the three of us is what things that can we build that haven't been built before,
Mm-hmm.
and really that boils down to how you view a metaverse. And a lot of people and a lot of projects kind of view this metaverse as this digital version of life where you kind of role play as a bored ape or as a cool cat in this place, and you socialize and you maybe play cards and you go to clubs. And I think that's really interesting, but that's not how I view a metaverse. I view a metaverse as something more like our company is named. Our company is named the Network State. That's the studio behind Citadel. And
Mm-hmm.
I view a metaverse as more of this tokenized social network that is more the next evolution of a nation state, where people are digitally connected and people are connected by a token and people are connected by a game, a vibe, a lore, or something like that. And that's ultimately what we are driving towards as a Web3 project. And there is going to be a really immersive strategy game at the heart of it called Citadel. And our NFT Citadel is going to be at the heart of that game. But
Mm-hmm.
we're really amped about building something really unique, that hopefully pushes the boundaries of Web3 a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um I just love this conversation, man. Like because we've now literally started with your backgrounds, come full circle as to why the importance of your
Yeah.
backgrounds in Web3 and just the concepts and thoughts behind it to get to your actual NFT. It's just been a fascinating conversation. Maddie, if you don't have another question, I'm going to kind of lead into the idea of Citadel and move forward unless you have something you want to say before we go down that path.
Not a question, but more of just a statement. Again, to continue with the Ready Player One analogy, what you just said was interesting because um, essentially the concept around that is would it have been if it wasn't about finding those three keys, right? There was an element, a unifying factor that brought people. And again, when you say tokenized, right? So it was also tokenized, right? It's like that concept of essentially putting a score behind it does change the game, figuratively speaking, right? Pun intended. It changes the dynamic, and I think that that's something you're trying to bring to what you guys are doing. And I think there's a lot of maybe wisdom is the right word, but there's certainly a lot of thought behind it. But I think wisdom might be the right word that's behind that. What do you think about that?
Wisdom.
In terms of the fact that there's a goal, right? There's when you say lore.
No, I just was like, I totally get it. I just was being funny. Sorry, that didn't come out. That was a bad joke. In the sense that I just wanted to say, wisdom.
I got
That's
it.
all.
I got it
You
now.
could
No,
grab
I
your beard
get.
and whisper
No,
it away. That would have
I have a
been
really long beard, so it's like I
You're
was stroking it.
you're
beard. Oh, that makes
stroking
me
the
so happy.
beard while you
I
were
was like,
doing
oh, wisdom. Yes, this is why I've got this beard. No,
it.
It's an incredible beard. He's not joking.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, I'm ginger bearded man, so I appreciate beards.
yeah. So I think that it's like in any game, what are you training people when you play a game? What is fun? Getting back to that core foundation thing.
Mhm.
And what we find ourselves oftentimes in games is like when we're challenged enough, but yet we have the possibility to win or lose, right? And this goes in society as well as it goes in Citadel. And to me, like the wisdom is like we've all messed up and we've burned, and we've made horrible mistakes. Like just a few. I when was it when I was out there visiting? It was a few weeks ago. I was out visiting with Max, and we were just kind of relating on like how our careers low. When you like kind of lay them out, there's no way you can plan it or predict it or any of those sort of things. And there's so many
Hmm.
things that were in those cinematic moments where we blurted out something that caused a political crash in the company, but yet caused some success, or we left, or whatever. Case in point is that wisdom comes from like getting bruised up and taking chances. It's
Yeah.
taking that like courage to step up and say something and do something about it instead of just kind of complaining and wishing and hoping. And I like to defer to the fact that like I don't know if there's past lives or future lives or whatever kind of lives. I just know that the moment is all I got, and everything else is a saved game, and I can learn from those saved games, or I can like debug them and like make my gameplay more fun. You know, that's just how I look
Mhm.
at it, and I don't know if that's wisdom or if it's just like being resourceful. You know,
I think it's a bit of both, man.
Yeah.
yeah,
Ah,
All
no,
right, Mike, bring us to it.
yeah.
again, one of just the, like we've had amazing conversations on the show, but just the insight and the thoughtfulness of your responses is just incredible. So I really appreciate it. Um, as far as Citadel, we'd like to move on to there, but before we get into like, hey, let's go to the 2 to 3 minute elevator pitch. I'm really, really interested in kind of the moments, maybe say the couple months up leading to, and then the moment you have the aha, uh, Citadel is it. This is the game I want to make, and now I got to figure out how to get it done. We've had responses such as, I literally was asleep and I woke up at 3 a.m. with a brilliant idea and I started journaling for 3 hours. So what was that story for you, Max, when you were really thinking about this and it came to fruition?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it was a bit of a long process, and then kind of a thunderbolt, like you said, where in December I sat down and wrote probably 15 pages of white paper, that read like a Napoleonic War, and that became Citadel. Um, but leading up to that, I was as I mentioned, I've been in crypto and Web3 since the beginning. And so I saw what Axie did, Axie Infinity, and saw and mad props to Axie. They were first out of the gate. They have an incredible token. They have created a wonderful thing, but I felt like they were onto something but didn't nail it in two aspects. The first being their tokenomics, and the second and most important thing is being fun in the game. And but they had enough of something for me to be really interested, and that was the tokenization around a game and what that can do to all games that will make them more fun and more immersive to play. And that kind of bridges to what I've been talking about before. And so I was watching a game that wasn't fun to play, that required new wallets to enter the game to sustain their economy, um, do incredibly well. And I think a lot of people paying attention felt the same way. And so a lot of people along that era probably started thinking about play to earn as a space and what it can do to all games. A lot of people, like myself, believe that play to earn games will be really big breakouts, not just in crypto, but in gaming.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to create such a game. And in December, I came up with Citadel because I wanted to play a game of conquest for real money, for real outcomes.
Mhm.
That is the type of person I am. Like I have more fun when there's real outcomes attached to what I'm doing,
Yeah.
when it's attached to strategy behind a game. If I can do something better, I want the outcomes to be better. And that birthed the idea for Citadel.
Unbelievable. And so what's really cool is I'd say 95% of the NFTs that I know are, hey, I know play to earn is going to be a thing. I'm going to make an NFT and try to figure it out. Never made a game. Don't even know how to start making a game, but I know this is what I need to do. And it's really cool to know that we've got two veterans of the industry that know how to make great games and decided this is the type of game I want to see in the Web3 space. So that's just extremely exciting to hear, because I have not encountered that yet. So uh, that's really, really, really cool explanation. Maddie, anything to add before we kind of move into the description of what Citadel actually is?
I am so excited that your description was a game of conquest. Just the word used there right off the bat just says, all right, this guy's serious. He has this is beyond maybe just a cursory glance at strategy games, and I don't know, man. I need to figure out what the sandbagging method is for Conquest, because it's going to be for Citadel, because it's going to be real money this time, and I can't let Mikey G do me wrong like he did this time, last time so many years
Yeah,
ago. So this is I'm really excited to kind of move in to get the in depth. Let's get into this game and see what we got.
awesome.
And Sticks, do you have anything to add to what Max just added until we kind of break down what the game is, how
No,
it works?
it's just like same 10x that. It's just we're both so aligned in what we're about and what uh, this this game and the implications of it. And I'm always challenging our team to you know keep thinking bigger, keep thinking like beyond. I really take this post-human thing. I really love
Yeah.
that term.
Yeah.
Where like if we're getting into character, like I'm the pen, so like as running in the underground, like how do I deal with subgrid? How do I inspire conversation? And what does that look like and feel like, and really get into that character? And so we definitely are just super stoked about the strategies that are going to come out of this,
Yeah.
the communities, the partnerships, the burning. Like we've often talked about, like we want like news lines to show like this is how much Drakma was burned today in Citadel, and how many Citadels burned up in flames, and how much was exchanged in that battle. We just have these just beautiful visions of destruction. So
Well put. Beautiful visions of destruction. And now I'll click it over to kick it over to you, Max. Um, most of the people here, obviously from your community, know everything this is about, but we have 70 plus people watching us, which is a solid stream. Anyone who is not completely familiar with Citadel, because this will also live on YouTube too, so it'll be coming up in NFT searches. Give us the 2 to 3 minute kind of elevator pitch. What is Citadel? Why me as an NFT lover and what seems like 100,000 PDE games out there? Why should I consider spending my hard-earned money on Citadel? And what is it?
Well, first and foremost, Citadel is free. Our mint was free, and and all of our game assets that we have, we want a really low barrier to entry. We want people to have fun playing our game.
Love it.
So yeah, yeah. But let's get into Citadel because it's a fascinating world. So the scene for Citadel is there are 1,024 Citadel, and you can think of a Citadel as a small sovereign nation state. So these are hundreds of people that are living inside this little city, and they are at war with everyone. They are sovereign to themselves, but they are aligned with a faction, and they are aligned with a faction because that's the only way that they can survive. Now, in Citadel, Citadel takes place in orbit around an astronomical object called Drak, and the Citadel in the game light themselves to a piece of grid, and you can think of grid as this sphere that surrounds this astronomical object. And I hope everyone can watch our game demos because that does a better job of showing you what Citadel is than I'm describing. But they are all lit to the grid around Citadel, and the actions in the game you can take are all violent in nature. You can raid neighboring grid, you can raid neighboring Citadel that are next to you, you can raid Citadel miles away. And what you do when you raid is you send fleet, which is our term for troops, into battle, and those fleet will engage in the enemy Citadel and they will steal drachma from it. So all of these citadel are lit to the grid and they are mining drachma, and you need drachma in order to upgrade your citadel, to upgrade your fortifications, to upgrade your weapons, to be more effective in the game, to raise fleet. And as you're doing so, you're creating a circular economy where you are spending drachma into the treasury to upgrade. You are spending drachma into the treasury to raise fleet and troops, and you are obtaining drachma from the game through mining. And so it's really a game of resources, kind of like Catan is a game of resources.
Yeah.
And so you are optimizing for those resources, but you also have the constant threat of attack. And the threat of attack is twofold. You'll have people raiding you consistently to take your drachma that you're mining. And so you either have to make a choice. Are you going to optimize for mining, or are you going to optimize for defense? Or are you going to be the type of player that's just constantly attacking people? And so you are going to be raided, you are going to be raiding, you're going to be mining grid from drachma from the grid. The second key pillar to the game is the siege, and the siege is the really destructive element in Citadel where a player can take another citadel. Now we have 1024 Genesis 0 citadel, but a rule of the game is that if you successfully siege a citadel with a group of fleet over a period of 24 hours, where you take the control of the citadel from 100 to 0, when 100% controlled by the enemy, to 0% controlled by the enemy, that citadel will be destroyed and you will receive a game token for the next generation of citadel. Only the next generation of citadel is less powerful than the previous generation of citadel, which makes our game incredibly deflationary and makes citadel become more and more scarce in the ecosystem. So we'll have a situation where we started off with 1024 Genesis 0 Citadel, and we may have 60 at some point. And each person that owns such a citadel will have the most powerful piece on the chessboard, but putting it at risk becomes more and more. You can get more and more with it, but the risk is higher and higher because it's becoming more and more scarce. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this immersive strategy game that is constantly pushing decisions onto the players. Do I optimize for safety? Do I optimize for conquest? And the reality is that you're always going to have to be on the attack in the game. You're always going to have to be growing to be competitive. And that's the 3.5 minute description of Citadel.
That was a great, quick, and what's cool about what you described is, I think, a majority of people that hear that pitch can understand the basic concept. What's really interesting is it can become incredibly complex if you want to, which makes for a really interesting, fun game. One of the things that just sparked in my mind is just like a random thought I had was part of your strategy of when you were building, I guess, what would you call that? The game theory or how the functionality of the game works. Was there this thought of you don't want people to be sitting on the most sought after citadels and can just camp on them without doing nothing? Because what I heard a little bit was at any moment you could get attacked and you need to be gaining resources, or is there a way to completely take your citadel off the grid knowing that you have one of the originals that's just going to grow in value over time?
Yeah, so we anticipate that this is probably, as a game designer, this is the most fun part for me, is because I want to force people to put their citadel at risk.
Yes.
But we will have a PvE version of the game where you can play Farmville with your citadel and keep your assets safe, but you won't earn a tenth as much as you would if you put your citadel at risk and into battle. And my goal, it's funny because we have this amazing problem in the game in that Styx came and made these beautiful pieces of art that absolutely no one is going to want to put at risk. These things are incredible paintings. I am so inspired by the artwork, and my goal as a game designer is to pull that asset from them and make them put it at risk. And the way that we can do that, of course, is economic incentives. And so we will economically incentivize you so much to put your citadel at risk that we hope that everyone is doing it. If you choose not to do that, of course, it's a decentralized blockchain and you do not need to do that. You can hold your citadel forever as a piece of art. You can play the game in a more safe mode where you will not lose your asset, but you won't have a lot of fun and you won't extract the most value from the game.
Right.
What made Axie so popular and what makes everyone looking at the space interested in it is that play to earn is a vehicle for value capture, and that's one of the tenets of Web3 that you don't really think about, but really is at the core of it. A lot of people are here to capture value from play and attention, and that's what play to earn, and that's what Citadel is designed to do. We have designed our game for users of the game to have fun and capture value from the game, whether that be minting new NFT from the game after an action is triggered, like you take a Citadel, you get a Citadel. You can create a pilot, which will be our second NFT, after raising so much fleet. So these are ways that you can extract value from the game. Drakma, the in-game currency, is a way that you can extract value from the game. But where games get it all wrong is that they don't create a circular economy. They don't create in economic terms, they don't create the supply sinks necessary to have an economy that has a lifespan of a decade, or they create economies that have a lifespan of 3 months. What you really need in a play to earn game, and where Axie and a lot of other games go wrong, is you need a massive supply sink. And in Citadel, that supply sink is our siege. It is the massive capital destruction that occurs. You will, in the game, raise a million fleet to attack your enemy. Those fleet will die, and the capital that you spent to procure that fleet will have been destroyed and ultimately make
Mm,
its way back into the
gotcha.
game treasury. And then, uh,
Gotcha.
Interesting.
That was gonna
to
be
if
my
I could
question.
just finish this off, then we're going to have because Citadel is not a fun place. Citadel is a violent dystopian place. And so we want everything about the game from the PV the profile pictures you see in the game to be very dystopian. And our economics and tokenomics are very dystopian. So we're going to have these massive supply sinks in the game where people will need to raise capital to defend their citadel to keep it safe. Um, and much of it is going to be destroyed and back into the treasury. And we're going to burn over half of it when it breaches a certain threshold. So the supply of drachma in the game is going to become more and more scarce. The supply of citadel, powerful citadel in the game, is going to become more and more scarce. And we get this, and that's how we ignite feelings of dystopia. Everything in the world around you is becoming harder to get, and more valuable. And that's the economic design of Citadel.
Hmm. Okay, so let me just hit. I'm gonna kind of sprinkle in some community questions because they're coming in as you're
Yeah, they're
talking
burnt.
about them, so it just fits
But
fits
but
well.
but before you do that, Matt, I got one question because the one thought that really came to my mind is Sticks. Do you just get like cold sweats hearing that pitch? Because I hear deflationary, lots of burning of assets, which means new ones need to be created in mass abundance. And that means there's going to be a whole hell of a lot more painting going on.
It's
Uh,
all good. It's all good. I'm designed for this. Like this is part of my purpose in being in this particular dimension at this time. So it's all good.
I love it. That's awesome. That is,
I
and
get nervous for him.
He
that's
can
a,
get nervous for me. I'm not nervous.
no, that's cool because I know you have guardians and your plans for races and all of
Yeah.
this other stuff. So
So
that's just a lot of artwork, man.
yeah.
So more power to you.
So let's break it down though. Okay, so I put my citadel at risk. I lose it. What happens? Do I lose all my items? Do I lose all my currency? Can I get it back? Is it one of those where it's such a powerful piece, then without one, I can't really get back into the game? What happens?
Yeah. So yes. So Citadel can make more Citadel, and Citadel can make more Citadel by raising a pilot. The pilot can then go off and either siege another Citadel or create another Citadel on grid that you own. And grid is like land. So if you own 5 pieces of land and a Citadel, you can uplevel that Citadel over a period of months. You can raise a pilot, and you can have that pilot go and create another Citadel. The Citadel will be a generation older than the one it came from. So your generation 0 Citadel will produce a generation 1 Citadel. And that's how the game will be constantly expanding. How the game will be contracting is Citadel will be destroyed in sieges. So the game's most valuable Citadel will be Gen 0 Citadel, and specifically the Citadel type of relic that we have. Now the relic are this is a complicated game, and we could talk about it for 4 hours.
Sure.
But in all strategy games, there's a tech tree, right? So you research a
Yeah.
tech tree, and you get more powerful weapons, and you get asymmetric ways to be dominant. Like a lot of people will just raise tons of troops. A lot of people will research more powerful weapons, and those are two distinct ways to win the game. And so we have all of those concepts in Citadel, and so certain Citadel will be very large targets in the game. Specifically, the Relic will be very large targets in the game because they unlock aspects of technology trees for Citadel. So people will want, and other factions will want that Citadel in their faction, or they'll want to destroy it and get a Citadel that has that same technology, even though it's less powerful. So there's going to be a constant expansion and contraction within the game. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, no, that helps. And again, do you lose your items? Like if you have 100,000 troops and the Citadel gets captured, do you lose all 100?
You
Does the
lose everything. You lose the
Okay, that
Citadel, you
answers
lose
that.
the Drakma in it,
Ooh.
you lose everything there.
That's a lot of
Big
loss and
big
destruction.
gamble.
It's a
Big
lot of
You
gamble.
get to
loss.
you get to really feel it.
I love
Yeah,
it.
no,
Um,
for
Man, it's
sure.
such a cool
But it
concept.
is possible to get back into it, right? So if you have the people who are avidly love it, they can get back in the game. That's really what I want to kind of get at, right? This isn't want to be like you're wiped out and what's the point kind of thing, right?
exactly. Yeah. So 100%. So we will have a ton of one of the let me back up and talk about that scenario where you lose a Citadel. You will probably lose you may lose a Citadel of 5. You may lose a Citadel of 10. As the game expands, if you expand too much and leave your defenses really weak, your Citadel will be more easy to be picked off. If you're working in a faction that isn't collaborative, that isn't
Hmm.
working together, you'll be more easily picked off. And it is going to be incredibly difficult in the game to take a Citadel. You will have to coordinate with your entire faction, and you're going to need to not only take the Citadel, but you're going to need to pin down the toughest wallets in the faction that you're sieging. Because there's going to be hundreds of players that are not going to want you to take a Citadel from their faction. The people in the faction that are being sieged are going to be coordinating. And so, what's going to happen? The only way you'll be able to take a Citadel in the game is by pinning down the troops of the biggest wallets in the faction so that they cannot send defenses to the Citadel that is being sieged. So, that is going to be the strategy that manifests itself. And it will take weeks of planning to take a Citadel. And most sieges against a Citadel will be unsuccessful. And the person and wallet sieging will lose power in the game, and that is to say that they will have more capital destruction from losing a siege, weakening their aspects of the game, and strengthening the person that successfully defended. So within the game, there are hundreds of ways to balance power,
Hmm.
and the way I describe the game can come off as very, very intense, but the game is, and that's only because I'm so passionate about it. I'm passionate
Sure.
about games of conquest, but I get a little overboard sometimes, so excuse me. Um,
You
there,
can't see
there
you
are
waving your hands,
yes, yes, I am
Talia.
totally waving my hands. But yes, there are hundreds of aspects of the game to create balance and to create protection for while it's entering the game, and to create protection for people that do not have 10 Citadel or do not have 20 Citadel. And to add to that, we have a ladders concept in our game that is specifically designed to onboard new wallets into the game. So if you have people
Okay.
that have been playing Citadel for a year, they're going to have more resources than someone coming into
Sure.
the game, and it's paramount to all games to have a mechanism to get new wallets into the game and to
Yeah.
get them in safely. And that's our ladders concept.
Okay, fair enough. I like that. And what about so I know you have a lot of balancing strategies. The other one, and this is coming from an MMO background.
Mhm.
What is going to be your strategy to put, or I guess to control zerging, right? So that, if a group of, let's just say, a bunch of people buy in and they're already kind of essentially clanned up, for lack of a better purpose, right? And they just decide to swarm over kind of everyone. What stops that?
Sure. Sticks, do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So what stops that is factions, and but that creates another problem, right? That creates, well, your factions have to be balanced to
Yeah.
stop that. And so to balance the factions, we have economic incentives to balance the factions. Specifically, we will pipe. We have this concept in the game of hyperdrachma production, and hyperdrachma production will
Mm,
occur for the faction that is in the last place, that is doing the worst in Citadel. They
got
will
it.
both get extra drachma, and while
Interesting.
it's entering the game, will be siphoned to these factions through economic incentives. A
Hmm.
very simple example will be you can earn 5% drachma per day if you join Sanction faction, and you can earn 1% if you join the autonomous zone. Well, most new wallets are going to choose the one that has the most
Sure.
output, and that will naturally balance the game. So that's
Got
how we intend to balance factions, uh, and and we're using factions to balance whales or groups of whales from running roughshod. Um,
No, that's great.
but
I
but
love that.
ultimately, Citadel and its economy will have the most value when there's balance. And I honestly believe that in a tokenized economy, that people, if you're a whale especially, you will realize that you can extract the most value from the game by keeping things balanced. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
Okay, no, that's great.
that's
Sticks,
another
do you have
social
something?
experiment. Yeah, it's just another social experiment. That's just what I was going
Yeah.
to add.
No,
See what
perfect.
people do with it.
Yeah, one of
Uh,
the things I wanted to chime in real quick as we're kind of talking
sure.
about this stuff getting wiped out, and this is a constant question from people. I think just in NFTs and not even particular gaming, but like there's the quote unquote Genesis collection, right? And you want to reward those people for being early supporters, but in a gaming world, you want to really, especially if this is going on for years and years and years, um, you want to reward the people that actually are embracing your game and playing it and utilizing it, right? Um, are there any thoughts between those two types of people? Are you considering the Genesis Mint just a chance as, in essence, early access to play the game first? What are your thoughts around that?
You want to field that, Sticks? Or
No,
would you
you
like me
go.
to?
You go ahead. You go ahead. Fill that one.
Sure. So that kind of allows me to jump into the concept of ladders in our game. And this was
Mm-hmm.
actually created by our, I wish Neckman was here to speak to this
He
because
is.
it
He's in
was all
chat
his
right.
idea.
He's in the
Oh,
chat. Like,
sweet.
yeah. So he's lurking. I saw him chatting.
Amazing. So he was brought in like maybe a month into this, and he had these exact concerns, and he designed our ladder system. And so
Mm-hmm.
so everyone in the game, the OGs in the game, will be in orbit around Drak, which is this astronomical object. When we get to our second season of Citadel, we are going to introduce a new astronomical object, and new wallets will play with that. When those wallets mature, we're going to create a bridge in the game from Drak to this other astronomical object, which will allow people in both to attack each other. And we're going to do this via an NFT. And so that is how we're going to onboard new wallets, get them up to speed in the game, give them equivalent powers, and then we're going to separate them by usage of this bridge or portal NFT. And that's how we onboard users.
Mm,
Love it.
man, yeah, very thought out. I like it. I'm excited. And what I really, I mean, it's a strategy game, right? At the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be part of this. And the the main thing I had, which were my first questions, was just as long as you said you're protecting the people getting onboarded, and you're protecting them from getting just steamrolled essentially by
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's just been in for a year, right? Because that I've seen some amazing strategy games just get crushed by that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it, right? You said it. You kill the lifeline of new players, and then that's it. Um, and I know a lot of games will do like a safety bubble, like, oh, you can't be attacked for pick your time unit of time. And then the second that goes away, you're done for. You're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like going to be toast and just be used for resources. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good that you guys have thought about that. I have a question here from Evil Homer that says, how important is it for blockchain games to essentially have the crypto element less visible, or at least running in the background, as opposed to being front-facing feature? And he asked that in the context of onboarding non-crypto people to these games, since many traditional gamers hate crypto.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's tons of friction with crypto. If you think of this from a perspective of someone that's not deep into this, like let's talk
Yeah.
about all you have to do to fund a wallet. You have to go to a centralized exchange like Coinbase. You have to KYC to get into that exchange. You then have to understand what a wallet is and how to digitally send. So they give you the 64 character address. And what is this?
Yeah.
This is mine, and I send it to someone else. I send this to another, and then you install a browser extension called MetaMask, and you have to send Ether or whatever currency you're using over
Yeah.
to that address. And MetaMask is a beautiful tool, but it's not user friendly. So that's just a ton of friction. But once you get into that ecosystem, you have benefits. And I think those benefits outweigh the friction. So as we'll see pretty rapidly, is because this is just software, is we'll see the friction reduce and reduce and reduce until a point where the benefits of a tokenized economy and the benefits of a blockchain game become so astronomically better than the little friction that remains. And that's when you get a shift. You get a shift in the
Yeah.
marketplace. And I think that's what a lot of people expect to happen and anticipate happening. And I think that's a big reason that I'm interested in making Citadel.
Yeah, and for sure, right? Because like for the reason I think it's a good question that Evil Homer asked because I have a lot of friends. I love that you mentioned Catan, right? A lot of friends that are really into that style game, and there's some online like similar versions we all know of like builders and things like that.
Mhm.
But just being able to talk to them, and obviously I'm just going to send them the link to this conversation. I know they're going to be interested, right? And so like how do we address that? And I mean I know there's those hurdles, but my next question would be is you guys talked about, you know, hold on, the exact quote was a game of conquest for real money. So talk to me about the real money aspect. When you say play to earn, what's the potential for that in terms of if somebody's good at this and really wants to play? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Sure. I mean, I think that's a big promise of play to earn, right? You
Yeah,
play something like that's what everyone wants. You want to play something that you love and take value from that game
for
and
sure.
maybe even so much value that you can devote more time to that hobby of yours. That's
Hmm.
like the gamer's dream, right? To get
Yep.
paid to play
Mike
video
talks
games.
about this all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why Axie had its mercurial run is because
Mhm.
people, the game wasn't fun, but people you could make a living playing the game, and that spread like wildfire, especially in places like the Philippines.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the promise of Web3, and almost everyone's getting it wrong right now, and maybe we'll get it wrong as well. Um, but the promise is there, and people are going to keep trying, and there
Mhm.
will be a breakout hit in this space. I'm convinced of it. Whether that's Citadel or someone else, who knows? But
Mhm.
I believe in the space a lot, and I think that there'll be a pretty massive breakout in play to earn.
Right. And I agree. And so to add to that, just an interesting concept that I think about a lot is, um, from Maddie and I's perspective, um, we're not going super deep into every project, right? But we touch a wide breadth of projects that gives us the ability to be involved with multiple projects, whereas your world is Citadel. I actually had this conversation with Matt. I love your comments on this of how soon you think this is going to be a thing, because I do think it will be a thing.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
we have 15 citadels that pop off. Well, Maddie and I are invested in all of them. I'm running a company. I don't have time to play the game. So now I have to employ somebody to play my game to earn money in the game. What is the thought about that? What are your thoughts about that concept?
Sounds
Or
pretty
having
dystopian.
yeah, or have someone like basically rent to play the game, you
Yeah,
know?
and you kind of saw it in
Yeah.
essence a little with Axie, with kind of the scholarship program stuff that they
Mhm.
started building, right?
I need a
Mhm.
replicant.
Yeah, I think it's gonna become it's a cool problem to solve, but I think it will become a problem more. I mean, between
Well,
you and we've talked to Collider and Clementine and all these other games we've had on our show, all great people, and we've invested in a majority of them. It's like, well, shit, man, like how do I play all these games?
But I think that that's a battle between entrepreneur and gamer, right? Is like
Hmm.
there's a lot of time and invested in a business and any game. But I am interested in that concept. But the thing that you talk about, Mike, that I think would be fascinating, and I'd also like to hear, is Mike, you've talked about the idea of essentially, and I'm going to use this term, but essentially a minimum wage gamer, right?
Right.
Or I should say a no, not a minimum wage, a living wage gamer. That's what I
Yes.
want to say, right?
Yes.
A more
Which is
appropriate
like
way of saying it, sure.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
idea that like you said with Axie, right? I mean, if you could make enough money, and again, if somebody's living in Los Angeles or Manhattan, maybe not. But in most of the world, right, and in a lot of the US, the cost of living, I mean, you could essentially like create a game where people could play your game and make enough to survive. Or is that part something you even see? Because that's something I definitely see in the future when you say when you say dystopian, the idea of being plugged into the matrix, right? And
Hmm.
really in it kind of
Or
makes me think of that. What are your
or the
thoughts?
last starfighter.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I mean, exactly.
What are your all
I mean,
thoughts around that concept?
Hmm.
I'll jump in, Sticks. A couple of
Yeah,
things.
I'll jump in after
Uh,
you.
why don't you go ahead?
No,
Go
please.
for it.
I insist.
Oh, sure. A couple things as it pertains to Citadel is that our game is slow paced, so it does not require you to play the game all the time. You will be able to log in once in the morning and log in at night, and
right.
you'll build a bunch of stuff. You'll send some fleet out on a raid, and then you'll go away and you'll check what
Mm,
happened the next night, and then
Mhm.
you'll do it the same in the morning. And if you want a week break, you can take your Citadel off the grid, and they will not be in danger. So we designed the game
Okay.
for people like us all so that you can
Mhm.
play in 10 minutes a day and you can eject quickly if you don't have those 10 minutes a day.
right.
So first and foremost, that's how we're solving it individually
Mhm.
for Citadel. I think the concept of paying people to play a game is, I think you miss the point of games if that's what's happening.
Mhm.
And I think that's the case for a lot of PDE games out there.
Right.
Hmm.
They've missed the fun part of it,
Right.
and of course it's easy for me to say that Citadel solves that, but
Yeah.
that's what we've been doing for 6 months, is trying to solve for that, to make a
Mhm.
Yep.
really fun and immersive blockchain game. And we'll see if we do or not. And
Yeah.
if someone does, Citadel or not, that's going to be a really powerful game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and
go ahead.
yeah, and so put a different way, right? You're right, right? When you talk about a game that just like kind of churns and burns, and as long as you stay active and like your eyeballs are in it, then you make money. It's not that's not necessarily what I'm going for, because as you said, that
No.
becomes a grind, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
however,
there's
that
no
being said,
fun. There's no fun in it.
yeah, correct. However, I know I have friends who make a living playing Texas Hold'em, right? And here's the thing, their joy comes from the fact that, like you said, it's all or nothing, right? You're
Mhm.
good enough to make a living doing this, but we can agree that like most people can't. You have to be good. You have to be, you have to be able to kind of risk it all to get to a point where you could make enough to like really make that your income, your primary income source. Do you at least see that element in terms of getting that, like that really top level, the people who are able to play StarCraft professionally, like that kind of stuff, do you maybe see that kind of element coming into it? Because that to me is exciting when somebody can do it if they're essentially that good, you know what I mean, in terms of strategy.
I mean, that's like a whole ESL moment where, like the way that we're designing this is like a really slow burn game. I mean, originally, one thing that Max hadn't talked about was just whenever we were first talking about the concept, he was really inspired by the old MUDs, the text based game,
Yes,
right? And
you're gonna have to
so,
translate that. A lot of people don't know that that stands for multi-user dimension.
right.
Muds,
And
baby.
so, MUDs. And so back in the day, like that would be like how you played your games, like through a conversation, through
Yeah,
text, right?
right.
and it's up to your
I love
imagination
that.
to fill in the gaps. And so that's originally that was the concept of that you would just basically get a readout at the end of the day after you did your command lines, which Max did a brilliant job in putting that up on the web on our website. It's that console, and so we're still keeping with that aesthetic and that sentiment
Hmm.
throughout the game. And so that said, it's not going to be, maybe it will. I mean, but it'll be more like news points. Like in today's news, $3 billion worth of Drakma was just burned or torched or taken
Right.
over. That's really like those kind of game changing moments, and it may be like a clip of that what that war looks like, but it's not like a Twitch game, in the sense of like
Yeah,
a first person shooter,
Yeah.
a
I see.
Yeah.
spectator sport,
Yeah.
right?
No, good to know. I
Any
like it.
any thoughts on this convo, Max?
No, I think he nailed it.
Yeah.
Love his
Awesome.
answer.
Yeah, and I agree with you both. By no means do I want it to become that way, but like also the basis of an NFT is it if you're not collecting it for art, and a lot of people obviously are coming in an NFT to hopefully make some type of monetary value. And if your game is successful, most likely a byproduct of that is your NFTs will become more valuable, right? Um, to make those NFTs even more valuable, your Citadel is more powerful as you begin to get hype around this game, not just because it's valuable, but people genuinely enjoy playing it. There will be definitely a cohort of people that say, okay, I've had enough fun playing this game. Now I am going to try to maximize my profits. Whether
Totally.
that's Citadel or not, I just think that it's almost like a foregone conclusion in my mind.
Hmm. Well, it's mimicking the very premise of like what we're talking about, which is the dystopian sort of gameplay. And
Yeah.
and we're very aware of that, and we're also like, instead of resisting anything, we just embrace the chaos, embrace all that comes, and work with it. That way, you have choices, and that's when ultimately what we're giving the players. Like, you're not you're not playing a game on a rail, and like a Call of Duty or any other kind of like those kind of games. It's like you're dealing with other co-op players. You're not dealing with NPCs unless you're playing the PvE stuff. But like this is like real strategy, real teamwork, and building those relationships that we hope will last for 10, 20 years, if not longer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it's a really, really, really cool concept. Maddie, any more questions? Because I think I told you this, Max, when we first started. Like 2 hours is short for us, but I know you guys have been up for about at least 48 hours. So
It's
I
hitting
don't want to
hitting
keep on.
60-ish.
Yeah, 60ish. I don't want to keep on going and going. I know but you both need to sleep because I literally, Maddie and I will talk for 6 hours.
Oh yeah,
So,
dude. Yep.
uh, Matt, are there any other questions that, with all of these fun, fascinating conversations, we haven't covered?
One last game related question, and that's this. Let's say I get really good at setting up a citadel, building up essentially an element, whether it be fleets, armies, defenses. I'm just kind of using some generic terms here. I
Sure.
do that, and then I take it off the grid, as you said, to keep it safe, and then I put it on sale on OpenSea,
Hmm.
right? Um, Essentially, it's like starting an MMO and building like a full built out character, right?
Hmm.
And then essentially selling it, right? Which Bethesda or Blizzard, they're not big fans of that. However, it happens. Do you see that kind of because that's the craziest thing about all of this is within this economy, there's this other economy that's just NFTs, right?
Hmm.
And that kind of creates value. And if I'm in a faction, knowing that I could just essentially go on the market and buy a ready-made citadel, can I purchase that citadel and put it in my my land, my grid, or can I can I get a team member that wants to bring them in and they buy into it that way? I mean, is this like part of the social experiment you guys anticipated and thought of?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really want that to
Yeah.
happen. I really want
Yes.
the
Yeah.
person
Okay.
grinding. So I want both parties to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first party is the person. So we have a lot of our game is on chain. All of our game is on chain, and one of the things that makes a Citadel valuable that's on chain is its level. So a level 10 Citadel is much more powerful than a level 1 Citadel. And I want tens, hundreds of wallets in our game that are just grinding Citadel from level 1 to level 10 and then putting them up on OpenSea for a markup and then doing it over and over again. I want to see that
Mm,
person thrive in the world of Citadel because that is the world of Citadel. That is a
I love
really
it.
that is an
dark
awesome. I
scenario for
love
me.
that you're saying that.
I know, I love it. And then I want the other player. I want the whale that's going to do absolutely nothing, that's just going to buy their way into Citadel and lose it all because they stink at the game. Just be just be owned by all these
Yes.
scrappy players and lose value to the people that are good at the game. So
I
I
mean,
want both
It's Ready
situations to
Player
happen.
One all over again.
It
yeah,
is.
100%. Yeah,
We've been touching on
absolutely.
that all night.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the house always wins. So that's the other smart strategy from just an entrepreneur's perspective. So
Yeah.
I love it. This is cool.
Yeah.
That's an amazing answer, and that was the I wanted to bring that up, Max, because we had that in our initial conversation, but you addressed it right. Like how does the grindy player versus the whale benefit or not benefit from this ecosystem? And I think what we've all been saying is you you have put some amazing checks and balances in place, but the real fun is going to see how this pans out when people um literally as we've been talking about this, I'll tell you right now, 98% of the people aren't getting rid of their Citadel. So, like,
Right?
when they see this beautiful piece of art and they know they can lose it, it's just going to be really interesting to see. But then, when a Citadel becomes worth X amount of money, or you can make X amount of money by taking these risks, what's going to happen? It's just going to be really cool to watch. Um,
Well, it's
Super
also
cool.
just keep in mind that you're going to also be able to make lower level Citadel for your pilots and whatnot. So there's
right,
you can
right.
like
Spawn even
right. So
more
there
assets, right?
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
it's just a matter of like what's the strategy you want to take and protect your assets or be risk. It's just like Vegas too. Like
yeah.
your
Yeah.
friend that like makes a living playing Texas Hold'em or whatever.
Yep.
They know what it took a certain amount of grinding for them to have a capital in order to get at the bigger tables and do buy-in at the bigger tables. And those
Yep.
strategies are very different on a fundamental level,
Yep.
whenever there's more money on the line because people have picked up on their tells, they picked up on like how to read the cards and whatnot. There's all these strategies that are involved in that subculture. And we're building that subculture here. We're hoping that like there are going to be DAOs that are created from factions alone. So they're away from the Discord. They have their own Discords, and
Yeah.
they're running those things. And that
Yeah.
way there's a lot of like we really want to create this self-generating flywheel. Like
Right.
Max loves to use that analogy of creating a flywheel.
I
And
haven't yet. I haven't yet.
well, I
Great
know, but
analogy.
It's your turn. It's your
Yeah, I
turn
do
Jim
like
now.
that.
Collins, good to great. I love it.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and along that lines, like when we're building out the pilots or building out more citadels, we're gonna be I'm just gonna keep painting, and there's gonna always be like some stuff coming around. So
That's so cool. And
Yeah.
listen, with this just small part of our larger conversation, I got people like Ripted or Ripto chiming in. Oh man, I know a lot of lazy whales. I'm gonna get them to buy in this game so I can destroy the citadels. I mean, listen, it's happening
Exactly.
already.
join
It's
There we
join
go.
annexation. There you go.
so cool.
Dude, and this is like the kind of thing where isn't it crazy to think that like 6 months from now, somebody's gonna be raking in 80K a year from YouTube making how-to videos on how to win at your game. Think about that.
That's a
Mhm.
wild,
You know
wild
what I'm
world.
saying?
That's the
Like
dream. That's the dream.
that's nuts.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so with that being said, we can start winding it down. We had a ton of amazing content, great conversation. Love to give both of you just, another kind of couple minutes to talk about uh you're going to sleep for the next 4 days. You're going to get back up and you're going to keep on going. You just had a successful, amazing mint day, sold it out. You got beautiful art. People are super hyped in chat. What does the next 6 months look like in from both of your perspectives? I'd love to hear it from you, Max, and then from you, Sticks.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so we have a lot planned. So the biggest thing that is planned, well, let's start from the top. People need to
Yeah.
see their Citadel, right? You've
Yes.
seen the first 64 Citadel, but those are owned by the game treasury. So we're going to reveal Citadel probably in blocks of 64, and we also have the
Mhm.
property reveal. The property reveal will tell you how rare your Citadel is and how much Drakma it will produce in the game Prelude. And so we're going to reveal in blocks, and it's going to be really different than other NFT projects. So we'll see how it goes. But we're going to have
Mhm.
weekly reveals of groups of Citadel, and we're going to reveal properties all at once. Hopefully this weekend with a new batch of Citadel. So these are going to be events that are going to be occurring frequently until
Mhm.
we have all Citadel revealed. And then we're going to launch into the game Prelude, and the game Prelude is going to be really interesting. I think it's in the white paper. It will take place over 150 days, but we're gonna revisit that a little bit. We may bring it in, we may push it out a little bit. We just need to evaluate our schedule a little bit. But in the
Mm-hmm.
white paper, it says it's 150 days. And
Right.
that is where we distribute Drachma to everyone that owns a Citadel. So you will stake your Citadel and you will receive drachma daily. But that's a boring game to play. So we're going to actually build ways that you can play during the prelude, where you can capture value. You can up level your citadel in the prelude by doing certain things, and we're talking about bringing aspects of the tech tree into the prelude, and then we're going to do a bunch of fun games with the factions in order to create rivalry and create collaboration within your faction. So that will be occurring. During that period, we will have two additional NFT drops. Our second drop is going to be the pilot, and you see pilot NFTs 0 and 2 in front of you. 0 is Styx's pilot, and 2 is my pilot, Max Demian. That is going to be an entire NFT drop, and pilots have, as you've heard throughout this chat, pilots have a big part in the game. They are the anti-heroes of Citadel. Um, and then the third drop we're going to have is Grid, and Grid is basically the land of this metaverse. It's what surrounds the astronomical object. And then what's up next is a transition from the Prelude game to the full game, the violent game of Citadel. And so that's what we have planned out. We have a bunch of crazy stuff that we have in tune with that, but we don't quite want to drop it yet. But that is kind of our linear making the game plan and how we're going to roll out our NFTs and how we're going to distribute Drachma to the people that own Citadel.
Dude,
Unbelievable. I mean, just
fantastic.
as if you're just, dropping more knowledge and intricate thoughts of how it's just so refreshing in a place that, and Maddie and I talk about this a lot too. Unfortunately, and it is what it is. NFTs got exposure because of the amount of money you could make, but also the toxic things that happen in the rugs. Um,
Mhm.
and let's be honest, there's a lot of people getting into NFTs on the false premise that you can get rich quick. And yes,
Mhm.
do people hit lightning in a bottle and that happens? Absolutely. But success in most forms of life are pretty consistent formula of work hard, don't give up, pay it forward, treat people with kindness, learn from your mistakes, all the
Mhm.
things that you hear, right?
Mhm.
And it's really cool to hear people that have this experience and now are applying it in the correct way in an industry that has so much more to offer than making a lot of money fast.
Totally. Yeah.
So just really Thank you. Thank you for these explanations. Thank you for this conversation. Sticks, do you have anything to add to kind of the next 6 months, or did Max just crush it?
Oh, Max always crushes it.
Yeah.
He's he's just so coherent and articulate, and I'm just really grateful for our friendship and for being here and being able to be part of this and create the visions. To me, the next 6 months are a lot of art, a lot of painting and designing what the pilots are going to be, and also thinking about different biomes. One thing I want to mention before we wrap up, on our Discord, we have a couple of channels. One is for ideas. We are very transparent with our community and how we're developing, and we're always open. Coming up from QA in the game industry, I learned very quickly, like I'm in the business, like I was in the business of finding the bugs and making the game, and that's just like how I look at life, right? I've been mentioning before.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, like we're very open with like, and we've already seen this so much in our community that sort of there's so many blind spots and things that we're not thinking of, and people talk to us about their ideas, and we reward them for it. So it's just something that for those that are new to the channel and new to Citadel, please come by our Discord and check it out. If you have and, like read our white paper, poke holes at it, find out where it can be more fun, because that's all we're really focused on.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that like early on, like we had a team meeting and we were discussing whether to mint or not and to charge or not, and we were both all three of us were very much unanimously like, let's just do something that's different and out and not in this space, and
Right.
make it free and make it like as frictionless as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so
No, I
that's
love it.
like super super awesome. And so next 6 months for me, it's I'm more of a in the moment kind of person, so like I'm just like,
You speak my language.
like, okay, I know I gotta get this stuff done. I like I just I've never had so much fun in being in the game industry than being in Citadel. That which says a lot. I mean, I've done a lot of really cool
Yeah.
stuff, and it's just like we were talking about this earlier. It's one of those things being in the game industry where you realize at some point, like, there's never one moment in time that someone's not playing your game, and
Mm.
it's like that's been like that for most of my career. There's never been a time that someone has not been playing something that we've created.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
and it may sound unique, but like in the game industry, it's like something I like to remind my fellow pros is like, we have no idea how we're impacting people.
Yeah.
We have no idea, like with your stream, like I'm sure like I've seen it in the chat, like there's so much good vibes here and support, and because of you guys, and that's we resonate with that, and that's what we're aspiring for in our own community. That's why we don't do much marketing. We really do all this organic growth, because we feel like it's got gravity to it, and those that will resonate with that will come, and those that don't, it's okay. Like they can be NPCs if
Yeah.
they want to. It's fine.
Exactly.
No,
Or
I'm
hire
okay
that
with
army of adequately paid gamers.
yeah, right.
No,
That's
that's I love that answer, and I appreciate that, and I was hoping you all. By the way, when this is on Twitch, in YouTube, you'll have to watch it on Twitch, but I'll be able to download the video and archive it, because you can watch this entire stream back and actually read the chat too, since you're not you're not in the moment of the conversation, and it's kind of really cool to see what everybody's saying. And the entire time, people have been just super jazzed up. But we have, and again, like we can take this and kind of really wind it down. The reason the four of us here are today on our stream is because of community. One of our original community members, like, DM'd me 3 weeks ago and said, "You have to figure out a way to talk to these guys and get these guys on your stream. This project is incredible." and that is really the power of Web3. And Dex, we had Phantom Network. He's one of the founders of Phantom Network. Dex. He has probably the most famous quote that has come from our show so far, and it's the highlight video on our YouTube channel. And he said, "So, and another way to say that is NFTs are the friends you made along the way." And I was like, couldn't have said it more perfect.
Single tier. I love that.
Yeah,
Right.
it was. I mean, on the fly,
Exactly.
he whipped that out, and we all were like,
That's great.
"Holy shit, that's
Oh
amazing!"
my God.
And so, our final kind of wind down question, we asked this to everybody.
Well, hold on, because Mike, you're going on a monologue real quick. I have a very serious question
Uh-oh.
that chat asked, and it made me think about it. And this is a good fact. So the art in this is a little side talk, but the art in this is so amazing and beautiful. How do people? I know if you own your NFT, things like that, but is there something that maybe if somebody gets the reveal and their Citadel, I mean, the art again is amazing, and they want to get a physical copy that's maybe like something they could make into a much larger size, would you guys be able to do maybe like a larger image file or something like that? Because I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you want on your wall.
Oh, for sure.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Well, just 1,000% of my
Well,
being believes in that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was just talking with Max about this, like, some of these, I'm like, I want to just break out my real IRL paints and build some citadels on some canvas.
Right.
That's why I didn't make them at 512. I did 1024, and like my working files are 300 DPI. So I had that in mind, that these would be printed at some point.
Okay.
Oh,
I was going to say, Mike, translate that. What does that mean?
I don't know, but why is that showing up?
Oh,
Hold
no, I'm
on.
not talking about that. I don't know
No,
what
I
you're
don't
doing.
know.
I don't know what you're doing.
Something popped up. I don't understand what that's all about.
Mike's in another dimension.
My web browser just popped up on screen. I'm like, what the hell?
Can I
Yeah,
actually jump in,
that
because
translates to he made them high res enough that you could print a pretty nice version of it. Is what he
Okay,
just said.
so if I get one, I'll be able to do that. That's really what I need to know. Keep it simple.
You
Okay.
talked maybe a little too designer specifics for him, Sticks.
Yeah. I still zoom by walking forward with my camera. You know what I'm saying? Gotta keep it simple.
What were you gonna say, Max?
I wanted to jump in, and Styx is the most humble person I know. He is salt of the earth type of person, and I want to talk about what an incredible artist he is as well, because that is what is drawing so many people to our community, and is seeing these beautiful structures on Twitter that no one has ever seen or imagined before, and how Styx has created this unique world. And Styx is a really well-known painter in real life. He's a prolific painter. His stuff is in museums. His stuff is in galleries. The art that you are seeing is one-of-one art from someone that is currently making something that I find to be really moving in the Web3 space. Everything that I've seen from him is so innovative. I have not seen anything like it anywhere. The diversity of his art and the diversity you will see in the Citadel blows my mind every single day. And I've seen thousands and thousands of Citadel, and I love almost every single one of them. And I've seen nothing like it in my life.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, we want to showcase that art, and
Yeah.
it's become an amazing strength of our product. And we want to showcase it and also keep it safe for the person. So part of our game, if you lose your Citadel, you do not lose the art of it. You lose the in-game ability of it,
Oh,
and you keep
thank
the
you.
art. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
you will never lose these beautiful pieces of art because they are made by someone that I think is is going to be in the upper echelon of Web3 crypto artists. This is, no one knows Styx in Web3. This is his first project, but everyone knows Styx in console gaming.
Right.
People know him as a painter. And it's so fascinating for me to see him wade into Web3 anonymously and just out of nowhere for other people, not for me, create these mind-blowing pieces of art,
Yeah.
and 1,024 of them, and they're all one of one, and they're all beautiful.
Unbelievable.
So really blessed to be working with you, buddy. It's quite an honor.
And
Aw,
we're blessed to be able to have a, what are we, two and
well,
a half hour conversation already.
Absolutely, man. This is
yeah,
cool.
it's I appreciate all that. I mean, it's really it's just like I really want to create something that whenever you look at this, each one of them, like what I was going to tell you is just a real quick story.
Yes.
So the one of the very when we first met, I pulled together. It must have been about 100 or so. Just in like whenever you're in design, this where you'll show like here's your client, you'll show 3 different to 5 different versions, right, of something like a logo or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I put together like these groupings of different colors and different styles because one thing I learned early on in my career as an illustrator is like I worked with old school style where I had to do pen and ink with a newspaper art director who would like, he would just tell me like, I want it to look like this style. And I'm like, okay, just do it on the spot and ink it and then show it to them. And then they would go to print, you know? And so that I learned how to work really fast. And this kind of, I know dates me a little bit, but I just take that mentality. If I can like learn to work fast in like in any style. So I have put together like roughly, it was probably about maybe 10 to 12 different styles of Citadel. And I put them on a big pure ref board, and I was walking through it with Necklin and Max here, and I was expecting them to like maybe 1 or 2 different styles. And Max just kept going, "No, that's my favorite. No, that's my favorite." And I was just like, "Oh shit, okay. You like all these?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, well, what styles do you want me to go with?" And he's like, "Let's just make them all." And I'm like, really? Because there's some that were like, I literally spent like 3 minutes just like doing a quick like rough, just like, hey, here's a color, here's a composition, here's. I think the very first drawings I did like old school, sort of like just using a ballpoint pen and saying, hey, here's some of the shapes and like visual language I'm looking for, and they were just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, uh, these are not a big deal. This is not a big deal. These are just like the first sort of scratches. So now, like
Man.
getting this rhythm and understanding, like as we got deeper into the lore, like each one of these Citadel, like I want to evoke a certain biome or a certain like mystery and certain like where the hell is this coming from? What sort of post-human experience is this? And what's the features of this, and what's it going to look like to fight against another one or take it over or stuff like that? What does it look like destroyed? I did like
Right.
a few things early on, like just this acid rain and how it looks like to deteriorate armor, and like and
Yeah.
having some pilots kind of like distorted and stuff. So that's why I was like saying, hey, if you got some ideas that you'd love to see something like deteriorated or crazy, like throw it in our ideas channel, and I would be more than happy to like
Right.
explore that. So
And
anyway,
thank you for sharing that story. It brings up one last comment, and then I promise we
sure.
can go into closing.
Hmm.
But I think about this a lot in just random times, and this is one of the time. And it's more about what Max has said. And when I first talked to him, he was like, this guy Sticks. He is just prolific, and it's unbelievable what he can do at the scale, the detail, and just the creativity in such a short amount of time. And that is prolific greatness, the best of all time, however you want to describe that, right? I I think, and one of the many things I love randomly is golf. I love golf. And whether you hate or love Tiger Woods because of his off the course transgressions, one thing that you cannot argue is Tiger Woods is one of the greatest golfers of all time. And where I'm going with this is he took the pure daily dedication from a young age, really started with his dad. But why I think he's so amazing at what he does is not only did he work harder than anybody else, he just had this internal natural instinct on how to be a good golfer. His body worked that way. His swing fell into the correct plane easier than other people, and he worked harder than everybody else. I bring that up because I ask you the same question. To get to a level of this, and I I, I really don't see even in the next year another collection coming out with over 1,000 one of ones this detailed, this creative, and this epic. What what do you think got you to that level of skill?
Well, uh, it's like what you've already said. It's just the willingness to just like dedicate and constantly explore. And one thing I like to do is like I like to transcend the idea of language. And what I'll break that down really quick. So, like, what causes friction in us, and what causes friction for communication is the idea of, or the expectation of. And I often like look at language. It's like it's something that I've learned and I've observed, and I can watch my thoughts, I can watch my feelings, I can watch my body and the environment. But who's that watcher? And so my creative process is diving into that impeccable silence and witnessing and pulling out like whatever comes, whatever's channeling through, uh, and and coming from there and just taking action, and
Mhm.
seeing where it goes, and not judging, and not creating these mental blocks or these limiting beliefs that this is impossible or I can't do that. I'm like, I may not be able to. For a while, like, um, I did these exercises where I really adore my friends, but I didn't want to be annoying and constantly texting them going, "Hey, what's up, bro?" So I came up with like a little mini game for myself of like, let me just do a simple illustration of an animal and a little speech bubble and just saying something fun. So I was practicing my copywriting, I was practicing my rendering and just doing something simple. I was doing on line paper, and I gave myself those three simple rules and just sent it out casually. And then after a while I got bored and I was like, okay, let me like do some pencils. And then next thing, let me do some inking. And then next thing I know, I'm like, well, I got a new iPad. Let me try painting with my iPad when that first came in. Let me try that out. And then next thing I know, like, okay, let me like sit down and just paint a digital painting of this thing for my friends. I'm not expecting money, I'm just doing it for my friendship, my friends. And I spent like, I kid you not, 6 hours doing this simple watercolor painting in Photoshop on a Sunday. And I was like, holy shit, like 6 hours just went by and I sent it out. But I took that 6 hours and over time got it down to about an hour. And then I got it down to 45 minutes. And then I just like got into speed painting and learning those techniques and talking to like, other concept artists. I'm like, I have a buddy who's like one of the super fast painter. And I'm like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
Or like talking to people that type super fast, like programmers I
Hmm.
know that just like their words per minute are like crazy, and it's just
Right.
like so they can catch up with their thoughts, right? So I always thought like, well, if thoughts are like the barrier, what would it be like if I just dropped thinking about it? Like, what if I was just in a flow state and coming
Mm,
from that place? Then there's no friction.
right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So it's just like how right now you have some listeners that are going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe 2.5 hours went by listening to this conversation." Why? Because they're in the present moment. There's no
Yeah.
sense of future or past, right?
Right.
So if you're in that space, in that flow space, then you're transcending that thought and that like assessment of like, oh, it should be like this or should be like that. Like when I'm painting or doing anything for that matter, I'm in that flow space of just like, okay, what needs to happen right now?
Right.
And then just watch it happen. And then kind of going, okay, like I was in some meetings in my IRL job today, and in the background, I'm like taking some of these paintings that are being minted and refining them a little bit, and like tweaking some little aspects here, like and constantly going back to it. So to nail that down for you and make it very pragmatic is having infinite patience and like constant and persistent action. The
Yep.
way that I like to look at it is like all you have is your time, attention, and breath. That's all the currency you have in life, and then what you do with it, right? Your time, attention, and breath. So you're either spending your time, you're spending your attention either on something that's fulfilling or makes you feel like shit, you
Yep.
know?
Yep. Yep.
So just being aware of that, right? Like if you're aware, like you could just do a simple exercise with your friends, like, hey, think about someone you really hate. What does it do to your body? You immediately constricts, your breath changes. You think about someone you love, your breath changes as well as your body, like the oils in your hands change. All that stuff changes instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about that, like looking at these pieces of art, how do you feel? Right? It's like you have that immediate feedback. And I spent lots of times, like when I was in DC going to art school, I just spent all my extra time in the museums sitting in front of these so called famous paintings going, why is this so well known? It's the energy behind it, right?
Mm,
It's the form. It's like these artists put all their time and energy and breath into like creating this piece that resonates on some level that to some people, like some people may look at my art and they're like, whatever, so what? And that's fine. It doesn't That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for the recognition. I'm here for the work to come through. Like
ah,
I work with a lot of concept artists, and like one of the things I'm always like, you are the DNA of the game, and your job is to elevate the game industry, not just the game. And that's what we're here for. We're here to elevate the whole game society, the whole like subgenre of games, and that's what excites me about what we're doing with
yeah.
Web3 and what we're also doing with this Citadel game and what we have plans for even bigger stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I didn't mean to go on that whole
No,
monologue stuff,
thank
but I
you.
just like I'm super passionate about this stuff.
I straight up have chills and up the back of my spine, man, because you described in such a beautiful way one of the many things I think it takes to be successful. And I felt a lot of what we do here on this show, like the flow, like that's
Yeah.
Mm.
I can't tell you how many people we've had on this show that we can get them to a comfortable space. And I say, yeah, 3 hours just went by. And they're like, what? That felt like 20 minutes. Like that's that flow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And
flow state.
it's because, and one thing I will add on to you, 1,000% everything that you said. Yes. I think and I don't know why, um, I always, when I talk about this, I always start off why I want to say, unfortunately, it took me till my late 30s to kind of really have the aha moment and the self realization of what I feel like I was put on this earth to do, and my skill set, and what I bring value to, which is exactly this, right? Connecting to people, having candid conversations, and making just people in general feel special with my enthusiasm, and all of the other things that I bring, right? And I had to go through um, some pretty crazy shit to get there, right?
Sure.
But I always want to say, unfortunately, it took that long. But I've really trained myself to really start saying, fortunately, I found that, because there's many people that go through life and never find that, and they live their whole lives,
Yeah.
right? And they're miserable or quasi happy, right? And when you find that flow state, or you find that it thing, and you feel like you're in the space of freedom to try new things, not be scared, get rid of the friction, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes just a fun daily learning exercise. That's how I look at my life now, right? And there's
Mm-hmm.
no, there's far too many people, I think, that wake up and say, I just want it to get to the end goal, which is some sum of money in a bank account on a beach. And I'm like, I don't want to get there, right? Because of that, the journey part of getting there. I want to get there for a week with my best friends in the nicest hotel and buy them all the drinks, right? But then I want that to end because I get to go to NYC and hang out with Maddie and meet all of these amazing people we've had on our show. Does that resonate with you guys? Am I talking
Absolutely.
gibberish or
Yeah.
making sense?
Not at all.
Yeah,
No, it makes total sense. Yeah.
yeah. And
All I heard is he's taking some friends to the beach, but then NFT NYC is with me. See how that works? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of that, are you going to NFT NYC? Are you?
I really wanted to. I have an ape, and I wanted to be at the Bored Ape Yacht Club parties because I
Right.
heard they were amazing. But I am
Yeah.
not going, sadly. I will be in Colorado with my fam,
Okay.
doing
Well,
some camping and stuff.
we were gonna be there, so I would say would definitely have to meet up.
What's the dates on it?
June 20th
20th,
to
24th,
24th.
23rd.
I'll DM you guys if I do end up.
Yeah,
going.
let us know.
Yeah, definitely let us know.
know.
And now I finally can say, for real, we're gonna go into closing.
Yeah, we got to ask the last question. That was like a
and
40-minute closing.
So I lied in the beginning. We actually have 2 questions in the stream. The first one that we asked that started this amazing conversation, and the last one is, and I'll start with you, Stick, since you're on the top. How do you think it went? Would you'd love to describe your overall experience? And then do you have any questions for Maddie or I? And same question to you, Max, after Sticks goes.
How did it go being on this channel right now?
Yeah. How do you
how'd it
think
go?
the experience of the last 2 hours and 45 minutes went?
It's been fantastic. Like, it's been great talking with you guys. I feel like I've known you for thousands of years. It's always it's fun for me, and not to speak for the other ones, but to be able to like just talk about Citadel and be Citadel and share it is always an amazing experience. I feel very fortunate because, like, I don't know, a year ago I didn't expect I would be talking here,
Yeah.
or even painting this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it went really well. I love your community and hearing their comments. Like, someone was like saying, like in 3 exclamation points, which is great. I love that, and because that's what drives us is, like, I think I mentioned it before, but like, I haven't been this inspired in games in a really long time.
Yeah.
And I've worked on some cool stuff and been part of really great teams, but yet, like, being able to create something that is on our terms and not tied to a publisher or tied to a VC or tied to anything really, other than our own, kind of what I was saying earlier, our own limiting beliefs, and we're releasing all of those. So it's super awesome to share that and that passion. And questions for you guys, like, from your perspective, how did it go? And where any suggestions that you would have for us, because you've interviewed lots of different creators in the NFT space, and you've seen things come and go. Like, tell us about your impressions and of myself and Max, if you, not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
inquiring minds want to know.
I'll go first with that, and I feel like I say this every time, but no, you guys, and I will I will say this for real. There are we've talked. I think Matt and I calculated we're up to like 70 75 founders we've talked to over the last 6 months. And I could say there are 5 that, and I know after this one is really going to stand out to me, and you guys are absolutely one of them, and they're all for different reasons, right? And yours are, and actually the main reasoning behind the ones that stack out of my mind are just the thoughtfulness, the variety of the conversation, how deep we went into just different topics, and you both had so much amazing things to say and things that I think resonate with people broader than just NFTs, and I think that's what we're trying to do here. And that other company I'm talking about is the Collider Craftwork guys were incredible.
Hmm.
Dex from Phantom Network, Am from Antonym, unbelievable human being. Like that type of class of
Mm.
people that are creating these amazing projects. You're right there. So amazing job. Keep on doing that, and I think the details and the doing things for a reason. I think that gets lost very easily in this day and age too. You're very thoughtful people. You continue to do that, you're going to be successful.
Mm.
And with that being said, though, I would say that is the glaring issue that I see with everybody that I talk to. And there are some people that are doing it right, and you are one of the few. But at some point, it stops, right? And it is you've thought of this insane plan for 4 or 5 months, but then it stops quickly because you get busy. Um, and and not only do you have an amazing plan in your head, but somewhere it's lost in translation to the community, right? So you just got to keep on sharpening the sword on making sure that the narrative
Hmm.
that you have built in your guys' minds and in those small groups of boardrooms is effectively communicated to your community and the outside world to attract new people, and doing it in creative ways through like you were talking about, doing short story Twitter blasts through Twitter and using all the mediums to your advantage that you put all of this creativity into. Use as much of that passion and creativity to tell your story as well, because it's just as important. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Maddie?
Yeah, Mikey said a lot. I here's what I'll be shorter. I'll say this. Anything that's trending, right? So this whole concept of NFTs is kind of in the grand scheme of things is currently a trend. Whether it stays or not is to be remains to be seen. But it draws a lot of people, right? And I think we can all agree that there's a lot of people drawn to this space for money. There's a lot of people drawn to this space for ideas and status. And I think it's the few people that are drawn based on the idea that want to move the needle forward. And it that idea transcends the money. It transcends the status. Listen, if this was about you guys being famous, you'd be doxxed. If this was about the money, you wouldn't have done a free mint, right? These are You're trying to build something that you truly believe in, and so far from what I have seen, you've backed it up with all of the actions, and you don't see that often, especially when something is quote unquote, like I said, trending, right? It's just so easy to jump on the bandwagon and make a couple 3 million on a mint with this space, right? So that anyone who doesn't do that has my attention.
Mm.
And then when you combine the fact that you guys have as much expertise as you already do in this space, and to do that, something's interesting there, right? It's captivating because you don't bring this level of art, this level of software design. I mean, as you said, some of the most popular contracts up to to this point, right? Some of the most popular in the game space when it comes to concept art. I mean, you mentor concept artists, which was clearly something that was obvious based on your final answer. You know, you can't bring that stuff to the table and then do it for free and then have this level of lore, idea, concept, and strategy, and not have that be something that's compelling. And I think that there's something that draws us to it. And I mean, of course, I mean, listen, old school analogy, new school analogy, but remember going to a Blockbuster and you sit there and you're overwhelmed because there's too many choices, right? What am I going to rent this time? I don't know. And you're sitting there looking, and something will catch your eye on the cover, and it's enough to make you go pick it up and like flip the the video over and start
Mhm.
looking at the back to see what it's about. I feel like I have seen the cover and I've grabbed it. I've spent the last 2.5 hours talking to you guys what's on the back cover, and now it's like, I wanna play this game. I wanna rent this, you know what I mean? I wanna see what this is about, and the bottom line is in especially a time now where people spend more time searching Netflix than watching Netflix,
Mhm.
um, there's so many options out there. To be one of the ones that people chooses is a big deal, and I think that that's what I see with you guys and where I see you guys going. If you stay focused on that and keep it about the idea, the social experiment, I think it's going to be a big win.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate the both of your comments. It's really grateful for that.
Absolutely. And Max, to close it all out, same questions. Did you any kind of closing thoughts, comments for us, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, it felt like we really vibed here. So thank you so much. I feel like I'm chatting with people that I've known for years. I think the friendship that the two of you have is it comes out when you talk to other people, and it felt really inclusive to me. So that was kind of special for me, and I loved our conversation. I love talking to. I can talk about Web3, Citadel or no Citadel for days. It's
Yeah.
literally all I think about it. My wife is so sick of hearing about Web3. Um, so it's really wonderful to meet other like-minded people that just like want to talk about the promise we all feel and see in this space. And that's what's exciting because everyone here knows it, they feel it. There wouldn't be this level of interest if there wasn't something here, and all know it's here. And what's going to come out of that, and being able to be a part of that and have conversations with people that are thinking the same thing is really fun for me. So thanks a ton, and maybe you'll have us back next time.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
love that.
so I'll give Maddie any other closing comments. He just said a lot, and then I'll say my closing comments, and we'll close it out. And I also, before Matt says any last final words, Nequin has currently gifted us 25 subs throughout this stream. So thank you, Nequin, and thank you, Citadel, and thank you all of Citadel community for being here. And as always, thank you for the Midlife Crisis community. This has been one of the more vibe year streams we've had for sure.
Oh yeah.
Maddie, any
I mean,
closing thoughts on top of what you said?
yeah, no, this has just been a pleasure. I got to say really what I wanted to say before in terms of this, and I'm just really excited about this. I am serious about wanting some prints of some of this art because
Okay.
this is really cool stuff. And Mikey can attest. I don't say that often about the NFT space. In fact,
Mm-mm.
I'm really critical of a lot of the art. I'm very picky.
Hmm.
As a
As you
product of
should
the
be.
80s, I mean,
Yeah.
I've just seen enough pixel art and grainy art just for a
Yeah.
lifetime. And so I love art that I would want to look at. You know what I mean? Stuff I
Yeah.
would want to put up on my wall. And it's just breath of fresh air to see that.
Mm.
I really love what you're doing. And I'm just excited to see the future. And heck yeah, I'd love to have you on in the future and let's see where this is going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Awesome.
sure. And to just follow off of that, I said a lot earlier too. That's what I want to do. I just want to, the offer is always here. Amazing conversation. I think there's, as we grow as a brand, and like we didn't even have time, like how cool would it if we could have taken 45 minutes and scrolled through OpenSea, or maybe the next time you have 60 pieces of art release, come on show live and we can just have a beer and talk about art. Like I
Yeah.
think there's so many different ways we can collaborate in the future, and we would
Totally.
love to have that conversation with you. And of course, absolutely, at least come back and have conversations when bigger, newer NFT drops and stuff are coming out. You're always welcome back. You're part of the MLC family now, and obviously you now have 3 hours of content that you can distribute however you may see fit.
Thanks. That's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really, really cool. Really cool.
And with that being said, fam, that was a solid 3-hour stream of just pure loves vibes. We'll be back Sunday, chill stream. We're going to have a market update. We're going to talk about amazing projects like the Citadel and more. We love you all. Thank you.